Okay. I shall call this meeting to order. Welcome to the April 13th, 2026 regular council meeting of the Town of Cochrane Council. Thank you to everybody in the gallery who has joined us and anybody tuning in online from the public. First order of business is to adopt the agenda, and we have a pretty full agenda this evening. Can I get a motion to move that agenda? Councillor Singh.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, any additions, deletions, conversation? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And then the consent agenda. We have not done these before. We did discuss it. Sorry, do we do one motion to adopt the consent agenda? That's the way the new procedural bylaw reads. And so anybody from council may notice there's the community growth annual report. That's there for public information. It's going to be published after we move this. But then there is actually a growth presentation later on in the evening, which is going to cover the important topics. So can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Councillor McDonald.
I make that motion.
Okay, any conversation on these items? Do we need to move anything out of the consent agenda? That's always an option. Seeing none. All right, call the question. All in favor? Carried. And adoption of previous minutes is covered. Public hearings, we have none. That brings us right into delegations. The Cochrane and Area District Chamber of Commerce. We are having a presentation from Mr. LaMontagne. Please come and join us. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Here we go. Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, councillors, and members of the administration. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of the Cochrane District Chamber of Commerce. It is a privilege to share our progress, our partnerships, our vision for strengthening the core of Cochrane's business community. Arrows aren't working. There we go. Okay, at the Chamber, our mission is simple and unwavering: to support and promote the business community and area development by inspiring and servicing businesses to ensure a healthy, innovative economic future. We proudly stand by our motto, your business voice, and today I'm here to demonstrate how that voice has grown stronger, more unified, and more collaborative than ever. First, I'd like to make a quick introduction of our leadership. This year, we welcomed 4 new directors to round out our dynamic and diverse board of directors for 2026-2027. Their collective expertise and commitment to local business and advocacy form the backbone of our strategic direction. Alongside our executive director, Jennifer Warner, and our chamber group benefits lead, Ellen Covey, this team is focused on delivering professional, transparent, and proactive leadership for the year ahead. Our work is guided by 4 core pillars: governance, strengthening continuity, training and policy, membership and benefits, enhancing onboarding, expanding programs, and driving sustainable growth. Events and partnerships, elevating signature events and building strategic sponsorship relationships, and advocacy with the focus of deepening our engagement with municipal leadership and all levels of government. These pillars shape everything that we do. A major focus this year is advocating for our membership and strengthening our relationship with town council and administration. We've worked to create direct access for dialogue on issues affecting local business, ensuring that the needs of our business community are clearly understood. The result is a more informed, engaged, collaborative environment, one where business and government can work hand in hand to build a stronger Cochrane. Our goal is to foster a resilient local economy through transparent, productive, and long-term partnerships with the town. When business and government align, the entire community thrives. We are committed to collaborative advocacy, a unified voice for business, and shared prosperity through open dialogue. Together, we can build a Cochrane that is vibrant, resilient, and future-ready. Our membership numbers have seen some significant growth this year, This past year, we now have over 400 members, which is an increase of more than 100 new members in 2025, a 33% growth in a single year. This expansion strengthens our collective voice and increases our ability to advocate effectively on behalf of local business. Events. Events bring our business community together, and it's very important to us. With more than 50 events annually, we've created year-round opportunities for learning, networking, and collaboration. Some of these include our peer mentoring program, business before and after hours, book club, maximize your membership, the Kelly Carson Memorial Golf Tournament, which doubled in attendance this last year, and a job fair that welcomed nearly 400 job seekers. Many of these events take place at the station at Cochrane Crossing, a space that we deeply appreciate having access to. In addition to those, we have 3 major events. Our annual trade show has been running for 47 years and has reached new heights this year. We are expecting record attendance this year, and we aim to exceed our vendors' expectations. We believe this event truly strengthens community connection, and it remains the cornerstone of our programming and a vital platform for business to showcase their work. The next is Small Business Week. In partnership with the town and with the town administration and CCIT, we delivered 28 events during Small Business Week, engaging over 400 business owners. Workshops focused on a wide range of topics to give business practical tools for immediate implementation. This week continues to be our most impactful initiatives. And the third major event was our first ever Business Excellence Awards, which was a tremendous success. We had over 140 nominations, over 50 finalists, and 11 awards presented in front of a sold-out gala with over 200 attendees. This event showcased the innovation, resilience, and talent that defines Cochrane's business community. And our achievements are, of course, a result of collaboration. We'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to CCIT for their partnership during Small Business Week, our volunteers, board, and staff for countless hours of dedication, our members whose resilience and feedback guide our work. Their contributions are the heartbeat of the Chamber. And finally, we'd like to express our appreciation for all of you. The town of Cochrane continues to be a vital partner in our success. Your financial support through participation in the trade show, Small Business Week, Business Excellence Awards, and the Community Job Fair adds about $25,000 of revenue to the Chamber. This investment strengthens our flagship programs and reinforces the local business ecosystem. Beyond your support through participation in our events, access to the station and your ongoing collaboration, particularly with Nicole, Mark, and the rest of the economic development team, has been invaluable. So thank you. And finally, we'd like to express our appreciation. Looking ahead, we are focused on expanding our impact through new events which will shine a light on Cochrane. Some of the ideas we are working on include elevating Small Business Week even more, launching a Women in Leadership event, and applying to host the Chamber of Commerce Executives Alberta Summit in June 2027, which would bring provincial business leaders into Cochrane. Our vision is to build a more vibrant, connected, and prosperous future for every member of our community. On behalf of the Cochrane and District Chamber of Commerce, thank you for your continued partnership and your commitment to fostering a thriving local economy. Together, we are strengthening the core of Cochrane, its business, its people, and its future. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'll open it up to questions, or council for questions. Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Dwayne. I came to your AGM recently, and I heard all your impressive stats and your financial growth at the AGM. So first, I want to say congratulations on all of that. both to your board and to your executive director. I also attended your Cochrane Business Excellence Awards, which was such an amazing night. And I left that night really feeling like Cochrane needed this. So thank you for doing that and bringing that to our business community. I just wanted to know more about empowering women in leadership and your application to host the summit in 2027.
Well, right now, they're ideas. We haven't actually done the application. This is what, like 2026 has really been a year of getting our strategy together, focusing on what we're doing this year and improving it. And these are some ideas that we are looking at for next year. So I don't have a lot of details on either one of those at this point in time.
Fair enough.
But would love to talk to you as soon as we do.
Perfect. I just got really excited about those two big ideas on the screen. Don't want to put you on the spot. And then I was curious, finally, what we're doing at the town of Cochrane to send businesses your way. Like, is there anything during the permitting process where we say you should join the chamber? Do we have any kind of process like that?
I don't think we do right now. We would love to. I'm not sure what kind of issues there would be with sharing that information, but if it is possible, we would love to work with you that way.
Sure. So I now have a new question. How do you find new businesses to join your membership?
We hit the ground. We have an excellent executive director. We just hired another part-time staff, Michelle Harabi, who's working with us now too, and then our board is always making referrals and putting people forward. And I think just with some of the events, the trade show, the Business Excellence Awards, the name is getting out there more, and I think that's a big part of why we grew 33% this year.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, having come to some of your events, I can feel that energy building. And I think businesses are up against so many barriers in those early years. So when they can find that community and lean on each other, that's a pretty strong foundation and probably increases their likelihood of success. So great work. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Councillor Fideko.
Yes, thanks for the information. Congratulations on the big increase in membership. That's pretty huge. I think you kind of mentioned a few of the things, but what would you say would contribute to that great increase? And what are you hearing on the flip side from people who choose to perhaps leave the chamber on some of the reasons as why they leave their membership?
Well, I think the reason people would leave is they're not taking full advantage of everything that the chamber can offer. The opportunities to network through the 50 events, smaller events that we have throughout the year, the business after hours, business before hours, I think those can be very impactful. And like I said, the inaugural business awards, like that's very impactful. It gets businesses' names out there. But I think it's people just not taking full advantage. We obviously have a lot more joining than leaving. Of course, you always have some attrition. But I think we are getting some momentum, and I think we're going to continue to grow. We've set an internal target to be over 500 members by the end of 2026. So hopefully we can get there.
Awesome work. I mean, I think just, I did attend the awards. I've obviously seen your executive director out many times in many places. And I think it just adds to the awareness of what's going on with the chamber. So kudos to the whole entire group.
Appreciate that.
Councillor Gill.
Thank you for the presentation. And congratulations on a 33% bump in your membership. I think that's amazing. And I know you've kind of touched on it, but I'm curious historically what that range was. 33 is a lot. So I'm just curious what you've done in the past year that has really boosted your numbers, if there's anything specific, and historically, what have those numbers kind of been like?
Historically, we've floated around, and I've been part of the chamber for about 8 years, I believe it is. And we floated around 250 to 300 pretty consistently, off and on. And again, just I think it's our executive director is doing a fantastic job of getting her boots on the ground and getting out and seeing people, getting our events more seen. I think we're a lot more visible on social media, and we're just getting a bigger name in town, and people want to be part of it. And that's part of what our strategy was. We want businesses to want to be part of the Cochrane Chamber and District Chamber of Commerce, and be proud members, and it being a badge for them.
Well, you're all doing fantastic work, so keep it up and thank you. And I look forward to seeing what this year will hold.
Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Sure. Thank you, Dwayne, and to everyone from the chambers for being here today and for your presentation. I want to start by recognizing and thank you for the important work you continue to do in supporting and advocating for Cochrane business community. Your efforts play a vital role in strengthening our local economy. We also truly appreciate the work you have put into organizing the upcoming trade fair on May 2nd and 3rd. It's a fantastic opportunity to showcase and connect our local businesses. I have a few questions. What are some key challenges and opportunities you are currently hearing from your members, especially in the light of current political and economic environment?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just the uncertainty of what's happening in the world. Really, it's not just a Cochrane thing. You know, I've heard restaurants of sales are down for a lot of these businesses. So I think it's just the activity, and a lot of it is world economics. People just being a lot more cautious with their money and being more careful. I think that's the main thing. You know, as we kind of move forward over the year, what our chamber wants to do is work closer with the town administration, with council, the mayor, and talk through some of the more specific issues that are out there. Mayor Nagel was at our meeting a couple months ago, and we had a little bit of a brainstorming session. There's a few ideas that came up that don't know if anything will come out of them, but just that dialogue and having that openness and that opportunity for our board to have that conversation, I think got a lot of people thinking, and we want to continue that.
Thank you. And the next one, could you share how your members have been engaging with the town's economic development strategy? How have the interactive sessions been received?
I don't have any real information on that one, Paul. So. Oh, sure, yes. Yes, you can. Whew. Jennifer Warner.
There we go.
We have sent out surveys to all of our members for the economic strategy in our newsletter. We've also been talking about it with some of our members in those one-to-one conversations. I was part of a group that met with colliers, so we were able to give some insight. But I think it's really important to engage. Oh, and then you guys were part of our job fair. And so Colliers was there to connect with the business owners that were part of the job fair and the people too. But I think it's really important to hear from the business owners. And I mean, we're doing lots of great things, but we want to continue to do more, for sure.
And just the last question, Dwayne, I promise. How can council and administration best support your ongoing advocacy efforts and business support initiatives?
I think we just continue to build the relationships with, you know, over the last year with the new mayor, the new council. I think our board and Jennifer have engaged probably a lot more than we have in the last several years. And I think just continuing that engagement with, you know, not just the mayor, but all of the council, the administration, is what's going to kind of move us all forward.
Thank you for your time and your leadership and your continued commitment to support our business in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it from council. I've got two questions myself. So when we had that conversation, it was a very beneficial opportunity for myself to have that back and forth dialogue with the chamber. I'm wondering what sort of interest there is for an engagement with council as a whole beyond this evening tonight. Is there any opportunity for an event where council has an opportunity to hear directly from the chamber members and businesses? I know in the past, there was the State of Cochrane event. We're actually planning something a little different for the fall. Instead of doing an event in the spring with just the mayor, we are going through a strategic planning process that's quite rigorous and involved, and we're going to be making everything we've been talking about public in a formal document before the end of the spring and start of the summer, and then heading into a fall event. So there'd be a window there. There'd be a great opportunity to engage with council, I think, to hear about our plans, but then also get feedback from the chamber. Has your group been talking about or suggested any way that you'd like to have some formalized event with us as a group?
We would absolutely love to do that. The State of Cochrane was, I think, a very, like, our members really appreciated the State of Cochrane. I know sometimes on social media it got some press that wasn't as positive, but for our members really appreciated that event. So yes, we would love to host something like that again. We've also talked about, similar to when you came to our council meeting, have rotating councillors, I guess, come to our meeting and share their thoughts, let us share our thoughts, do some of those things, spend 15-20 minutes before at the beginning of our meeting and do some of those things. We would love to.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And then through that conversation we had, I remember there being a few key policy ideas that came up. I was wondering if the chamber has at all formalized a list of advocacy priorities to the municipal government. Like, we as a municipal government, we have like a list of things we advocate to the Alberta government for. Do you have a list of things that you would advocate to us for?
Not at this point. We are working on that. We just put our new board in, and we all have a new advocacy committee. But that is one of the priorities that we have, and we will be coming forward with something with such a list.
Please. I think we would have very open ears if you had specific policies, ideas, initiatives you'd like to see at the town of Cochrane to strengthen our local economy. A little spoiler to the strategic planning process, that's probably going to be part of what we're talking about, is strengthening Cochrane's economy. So we hope you can be partners in that moving forwards, of course.
We would enjoy doing that.
Okay, perfect. So
Thank
we'll
you.
follow up on both those items. Council, anything else? Anything else from your group? And I guess we do need a motion to accept the presentation as information. Should have done that at the start. But Councillor McFadden.
Here, it's my opportunity to participate. I'd like to make the motion to accept your report for information, and just wanted to say I'm looking forward as always to the trade show. For me, that's when Cochrane comes out of hibernation, and I get to see all my neighbors again. So thank you for all your great work, and pleased to make the motion.
Okay, perfect. All in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And that brings us into our next agenda item, which is item 7A, Community Association Terms of Reference Approval. Ms. Delorme.
Good evening.
Sorry, not Delorme, Ambrose.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So today I'm bringing forward the Community Association Engagement Terms of Reference for approval. This work has been developed over the past year following the council direction and reflects internal engagement and engagement with our community associations. At its core, the Terms of Reference is about creating a clearer, more consistent way for administration, council, and community associations to work together as Cochrane continues to grow. I do want to start by clarifying one important point. Approval of this Terms of Reference does not make participation mandatory for community associations. Community associations remain independent, volunteer-led organizations. This Terms of Reference is intended to create structure and opportunity to build with the relationships between the town and the associations. This work originates from the Notice of Motion from April 2025, where Council directed administration to formalize engagement with community associations and strengthen the dialogue between Council, administration, and the associations. As we began this work, it became clear that the engagement with community associations was happening across multiple departments, often independently. That led to the creation of an internal working group to better align how we engage, improve coordination, and ensure we're providing collaborative responses to our community builders. From there, a draft was brought forward to Committee of the Whole in December 2025, followed by a joint engagement session with community associations and Council in February. Since that time, the Terms of Reference has gone through the 2 rounds of engagement with the written feedback and the meeting that we had with the associations. That's where we've arrived today for what's presented in front of you. And I would note that we've continued to receive feedback through this process, including more recently as the item has come forward. Administration sees the engagement as part of the ongoing dialogue as we move forward into implementation. At a high level, this terms of reference is really about creating clarity and consistency in how we engage and support community associations across the organization. It establishes a coordinated internal approach, improves communication, and creates clear expectation for administration and community associations. Equally important is what it's not. This terms of reference does not govern how community associations operate. It does not replace or duplicate existing grant or agreement processes, and it does not introduce compliance or oversight. The intent here is to not add layers, but to create a shared understanding of how we work together and how the town can further support community associations. Throughout this work, we've also been very intentional about balancing what is considered best practice and what is practical for volunteer-led organizations. A key part of this work was clearly defining what we mean by community association. Without that clarity, what we see today is inconsistency in how groups are engaged across the organization and confusion between different types of organizations, whether that's community associations, other nonprofits, or in some cases, homeowners associations and condo associations. That can create situations where individual voices are unintentionally representing broader communities, which makes it difficult to ensure engagement is consistent and representative. The intent of this definition is to create clarity so we know who we are engaging with, and that engagement is fair and consistent across all of the communities in Cochrane. It is also important to recognize that the town engages with many different types of organizations, all of which are very valuable to our development. Oops, I had one more paragraph. In Cochrane, we do operate largely as an indirect service provider. These organizations play a critical role, the community associations play a critical role in supporting community development, creating connection, and ultimately contributing to the quality of life for our residents. At the engagement session in February, there was a strong alignment on the need for clearer and more consistent engagement framework. The conversation was less about whether this should happen and more about how to make it practical and supportive for the associations. There was a clear desire for improved communication and stronger connections with both administration and council, which reinforced that this work is valued and needed. The discussion did include some specific questions, particularly around the business planning and insurance. Business planning raised the most concern with a request for more support, which the idea of templates came forward. On insurance, the conversation was more about understanding the purpose and where the general recognition that the grants provided from the town already supported many of this. And the requirements for the community associations are currently managing those insurance requirements already. Overall, the tone of the session was positive with a clear interest in strengthening relationships and creating more consistency on how we engage. In response to that feedback, we increased engagement opportunities with administration, introduced tools such as templates to reduce burden, and refined the language to make the framework more collaborative and practical. It was also noted during the session that many of the elements being discussed inside of the terms of reference were already part of what the community associations manage to be an incorporated society, with the exception of the business planning component, which is why we made that adjustment. Following the engagement session, we circulated the draft and received written feedback from community associations. At this stage, the feedback was focused primarily on business planning expectations, along with questions to better understand the purpose of insurance and the financial information and definition of community associations. Overall, the feedback reflected a desire for the clarity for the framework and making sure that it was practical and easy for these groups to use. In addition to the external engagement, we also identified some important internal opportunities. We found that multiple departments across the organization were engaging with community associations independently. While that work was well-intentioned, it created an experience that could feel inconsistent with the perspective from the associations. This made it clear that a more coordinated approach was needed to better align departments, improve communication, and ensure that we are providing consistent responses across the organization. We also identified challenges with maintaining up-to-date contact information, Given the volunteer nature of community associations, there is regular turnover and in some cases limited handover between board members. From an administration perspective, we've also seen situations where there are multiple touch points within a single association without always having clarity of who is formally representing the board. That's not unexpected, but it can create challenges in ensuring communication is consistent and appropriately directed. As a result, having clear and current lists of board members is critical to effective engagement. This terms of reference helps address these challenges by creating more coordinated internal approach and creating clear expectations for administration. To provide some broader context, municipalities like Cochrane operate largely as indirect service providers. That means we rely heavily on community organizations to support program delivery, build community connections, and represent local perspectives within their neighborhoods. In that type of model, strong and structured engagement with community-based organizations isn't just helpful, it's essential for how we operate effectively. While the specific approaches vary, we see consistent principles across municipalities in Alberta. In Calgary, there's a long-standing community association model with defined relationships, and in Edmonton, there is a community league model providing coordinated engagement structures. The models themselves may look different, but the underlying approach is the same. In Cochrane, where we also rely heavily on these organizations, having a clear and consistent engagement framework is critical. We also wanted to be very clear about the roles, because one of the gaps that we identified early on is the lack of clarity of how community associations, administration, and council interact. Each group plays a distinct role in how these engagements can be successful. Administration's role is to coordinate engagement, provide information and support, and ensure that communication is consistent across the organization. We also play a role in bringing forward what we're hearing from the community associations to council in a coordinated way, and providing opportunities for support for the associations. Council's role is to participate in key engagement opportunities while using those community perspectives to help inform decision-making. And community associations play a critical role in sharing feedback, helping identify neighborhood priorities, and helping build connection within their communities. When those roles are clear, engagement becomes more consistent, more effective, and ultimately more valuable for residents. To bring this to life, the terms of reference outlines a structured but flexible engagement schedule throughout the year. The intent is not to create additional burden, but to provide predictable and meaningful opportunities for connection between community associations, administration, and council. At a quarterly level, the Community Association Conference creates an opportunity for peer-to-peer learning, sharing of best practices, and connecting associations with town resources and partners. In the first quarter, the annual summary and recognition reporting provides an opportunity to bring forward a high-level update to council without requiring additional formal meetings of the community association. In the second quarter, the Community Leadership Forum focuses on strengthening relationships between senior administration and the community associations and providing visibility in upcoming priorities and projects. And in the third quarter, the Community Association and Council Leadership event creates a more informal opportunity for relationship building and open dialogue. It's also important to note that this schedule represents the structured opportunities for engagement, but it does not limit engagement. Community associations are always welcome to connect with administration and council outside of this schedule as needed. Overall, this structure is intended to create consistency and engagement while still allowing flexibility in how that engagement occurs. It reflects what we've heard through the process, a strong desire for more connection. This slide summarizes the annual information sharing component of the terms of reference. The intent is to support communication and coordination, highlight the work happening across our community, and provide council with a high-level understanding of trends and priorities. Administration compiles this into an annual summary that focuses on themes and community initiatives, which is shared with both council and community associations. I do want to be very clear. Personal contact information and detailed financial statements are not shared publicly, and this information is not used to evaluate performance or determine funding. This information also supports internal planning. It helps administration understand the organizational health of the associations and where there may be opportunities to better support community associations, whether it's identifying new needs for new tools, improve systems, or potential programming or funding considerations. I do want to acknowledge that through this process, there have been broad alignment on the need for a clear and more consistent approach. There are a small number of community associations who have expressed concerns regarding the current draft before you this evening. While the most recent feedback over the last couple of days have not resulted in further changes of the terms of reference, I do hope that today's presentation has helped provide clarity and address some of the questions that were raised. It is also important to highlight that throughout this process, we have made adjustments based on earlier engagement, simplifying language, reducing burden, and ensuring the framework is practical for volunteer-led organizations. We also recognize that continued engagement is important. My goal is to ensure that what is brought forward is something that Council is comfortable with, and that we are continuing to support the understanding of the community associations. At the same time, this work represents a significant step forward. It provides one of the clearest and most consistent approaches we've ever had working with community associations. As Cochrane continues to grow and as demand on these volunteer-led organizations increase, it is the right time to strengthen how we support them through more coordinated and consistent engagement while supporting our indirect service delivery model and how we already work with community associations, just a bit more structured and transparent. Council has two options before you this evening. The first option is to approve the community association engagement terms of reference as presented. This is administration's recommendation. Or the second option is to provide further direction to administration for additional refinement. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, great. So we'll need a motion to start the conversation. As Michelle already indicated, if council feels the need to take more time with this, there's no need to rush anything. So we always have options to defer, should that be something on the horizon for us. Councillor Verdeko.
Thank you for the information. I am going to move option 2, and I'll give you my reasons as to why. I think we're getting close, but I do think that there were some very valuable points brought up from many of our community associations across the entirety of Cochrane. And I think it would be valuable if perhaps they had a session as presidents, vice presidents, perhaps collectively on their own, to come back to highlight some of the pinpoint discussions that they have concerns about. Rather than us rushing to approve this, like the mayor said, we're not in dire need to approve this exactly tonight in the way it is, or something catastrophic is going to happen. That's not going to happen, so I'd rather give them the time to make sure that we're getting it right, not taking it back. Some of the things that I did want to bring up, when it comes to insurance, it does say that they would have to carry liability insurance. Do they also have to get event insurance then when they're hosting an event on top of the liability insurance?
Through the chair to Councillor Verdeko, my understanding is the general liability insurance will cover everything that community associations are doing, or there is event-specific insurance that they can purchase.
You can't see behind you, but I can see an entire row of people shaking their heads as no. So
okay.
I think that is just one of the things I would like some clarification on.
Sure.
It's either that, or I would request that they have D&O insurance, that's directors and officers insurance, to protect themselves personally from anything liable against themselves, but then just have to get event insurance when they're going to go host an event. It makes no sense for these groups to carry year-long annual insurance when they don't need to. D&O can cover them personally, event insurance can cover their actual events. And then when it came to, I appreciate the fact that I think you did clarify that people's names are not going to be publicly distributed on a website. However, I do think there is some value, and I don't know, and this is another point maybe to take back to the community associations, that each community association hopefully has a president at Heartland Community Association, whatever it is, vice president, not a name, but I do think it's valuable for us to list whatever their group's president and vice president email is, because if people who are moving into the community want to connect with the various community associations, I don't think that we'd want to direct them into the town to find out who they need to contact. There is a contact there, but there's no name to them. They're just president, vice president. That protects their personal information.
On our website, sorry, through the chair to Councillor Verdeko, on our website right now, any approved contact information that the community associations have shared with us is on our website. The list of board members is more directly connected to our internal use of who we're all working with, that the association is approving.
Okay. And then the last question that I kind of had right now, who's the CA working group, or there's a person who's going to be kind of responsible? Who is that person going to be? Do we have them identified yet within the organization?
Through the chair to Councillor Federico. So the working group itself is made up of multiple departments, and our manager of Parks and Recreation Services is the chair of that working group. But inside that working group includes FCSS, planning, parks operations, and parks planning and development. So there's a few different departments that we are making sure we're bringing all together, also municipal enforcement and communications, to make sure that anytime there is a connection with any of the community associations, we're able to ensure that internally we're aware of it, and if there's multiple touch points that that community association needs on that topic, we're able to deal with it through that working group.
Okay, and then is there one person that they would contact? If they wanted to contact somebody, like, is there one person?
Currently, we actually encourage all the associations, if there's like a roads issue, they would contact roads as an example, or if there's a safety issue, they contact municipal enforcement. So we would encourage all of the community associations to reach out to those departments specifically. The working group is an internal group.
Okay, that kind of clarifies that. I mean, I still find it, I actually used to volunteer on the Sunset Ridge Community Association when we had one back in the day. But I do find it still a little cumbersome, full of government kind of chatter. But I do understand after a phone call today, I have to appreciate it, that I do understand that maybe perhaps there is a bit more of a need than sometimes what I see. Sometimes when government gets involved, it bogs it down and it makes it difficult to kind of maneuver. And I think community associations can do so much good on their own without being passed through a whole realm, a long list of regulations and things that they have to comply to. But I do understand the need to perhaps have a framework, which you've done. And I certainly don't want to have you feel that this isn't close. It's close, but I would like to give them the opportunity to name their concerns and have it come back one more time before we're putting this actually in motion. Because once we pass it, we all know what happens. Sure, changes can be made, but it's gonna have to come back yet again. There'll be another evaluation on it, and pretty soon we're 4 meetings out. So let's just get it right the first time, and let's give them the opportunity to give you their concerns, and hopefully they can set that up, maybe amongst themselves. Maybe they could even use the station, because if one thing that I do want to say, that was a good ad for them to be able to host their AGMs free of charge, so that they don't have to actually pay for a place to host them. So that's my comments for right now.
Okay, before we carry on, we should get some clarity on the motion, because I believe Councillor Federico just said option 2, but that is to provide further direction. We should clarify the direction. I did email out some draft text. Not sure if you saw that come in while I was listening. But do you have specific language you want to suggest?
I haven't looked at what you sent out, but I would just like to have the opportunity for the community association groups to actually have one more round of feedback. That would be kind of my first thing.
Yeah, just for some motion text, I suggested that council defer decision on the community association engagement terms of reference as presented, and direct administration to work with the community to incorporate feedback prior to bringing it back to council for further consideration and potential approval. Does that work? I'll look to our legislative expert over there too. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what you moved. Councillor Federico moved that. Okay, now that we have that on the table for discussion, it would be good for council to take this opportunity though to highlight any concerns that you have, so we can send it back to Michelle and her team to move forward. Okay, Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I certainly support the brilliantly worded deferment. Well done, Councillor Federico. And Mayor Nagel. So yeah, it's and all of this is coming from such a great place, right? Because the first kind of direction from council is like, hey, let's get back to collaborating better with the community associations, and then setting up that first meeting and the conversations there. We had great participation and some great conversations. And so yeah, I appreciate the structure. Like, you know, sometimes we all wish, you know, could we just go back to the handshake agreements, but life is more complex. than it used to be. And so I appreciate the framework you've put to it. And then I've also, read and had various conversations with members of the community associations that are like, hey, this is seeming a little bit too prescriptive. We're just a bunch of neighbors that want to do good for our neighbors, and this looks a little bit intimidating for me. And then people got into it. And I think most of the questions I've heard, whether it's been in conversation or via the emails, I think you spoke to, and I think a lot of that clarity would probably help folks get a little bit more comfortable with this, but I think people just need a little bit of sifting time on that and a little bit of time to ask some questions. So I just want to share some of the ones that I had, and as the mayor identified, perhaps some areas to clarify. So one of the pieces was a surprise to me was, so there's a difference between a community association and a homeowners association, and we're saying HOAs are not in on this game. So this is for community associations only, and so Sunset Ridge does not currently have a community association, is that correct? Neighbor?
Just an HOA.
Okay, so the HOA would have to, in order to participate in this, they'd have to create a community association? Or how, because I don't want to on technicalities, exclude either the HOA, which has been functioning as a community association, or from a note I read today, the Glen Eagles Community Association is structured a little bit uniquely as well. So I don't want to prescriptively not have communications with folks just because we've defined something a little bit specific. So if we could review those definitions to make sure that as broad a membership can participate as possible. Any thoughts you might have on that?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor McFadden. I pulled these definitions just from Calgary and Edmonton, recognizing that homeowners associations function a lot and are set up by developers very similar to condo associations. Yep. So their intent behind how the group is set up and formed is slightly different than community associations, and the support that they would need from a municipality is a different structure than what a community association would be. So that's why those definitions were created, so that we could really kind of hone in who we were actually engaging with. But if council would like, we can make adjustments and include homeowners associations in that.
Okay. That would be my preference. Yep. I can see, forecasting we might run into problems, but perhaps until we run into the problem, we don't need to exclude anybody, is just my first thought on that. And then the other list here is so this is going to be recognized community associations. Now, as part of the idea here was hey, a recognized community association, if you follow these terms of reference, you get to participate in these 4 meetings, and we'll support you with different tools. And one of the things we're going to support you with is the $500 funding. Is that funding tied to this terms of reference? That was the idea?
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden. So the grant policy outlines the insurance grant funding that's available. This terms of reference is specific to engagement and collaboration and support with community associations, but not the grant funding.
Not the grant funding, okay. So on the grant funding, having had a couple conversations, and if we can find a way to review this, I think there's a strong argument to actually make the grant funding for community associations $1,500. The $500 was what we came up with 20 years ago, and I thought a couple years ago we'd actually changed it to $1,000. So, and just getting some of the numbers from folks on what it's costing them for either liability insurance. And Councillor Fedeko, I appreciate the point around the director's insurance, because I for sure want to make sure people are covered in case something goes on, and then event insurance. So if we could look at just increasing that funding to offset, some of the true costs that it takes to run a community association, and let me know how I need to best advocate for that. And then just going through some of the questions I heard, maintaining a not-for-profit incorporation status, as you identified, pretty much a lot of the reporting that the town is saying are the ones you have to do there anyway. I think I know what made a lot of folks nervous was the business case piece, and my sense of it, it could be as complex as you want, but it could just be as simple as, we're going to hold an event this summer on a napkin. we'd like it a little bit more formalized. But I wonder what might make things a little bit more comfortable for folks is if the template we had talked about was perhaps drafted and provided as an appendix, so people could see what the business case could look, how simple it could be. I don't know if that's a thought that might make folks more comfortable. And so that's that annual summary of activities and financial information. It's not meant to be terribly prescriptive, nor raise the bar too high. You provide clarity on confirming the board members and the contact information. So the reasoning for that is so that administratively we know who we're looking for and who is the recognized voice of the community and how we can reach them. I inferred from that that information will be kept confidential and not publicly available, which was one of the conversation points I had this weekend. Operate in a manner that's inclusive, accessible, and representative. Very reflective of our community values, so that shouldn't be a problem with that. And then align with the principles and expectations. And so the one I think I heard a little bit of concern at the meeting, of course, was the deliver neighborhood programming events, community projects. But I think you fixed that with that as they see fit language. I did hear a little bit of pushback around fiscal responsibility. Like, what does that mean? But I think for myself, that definition means what we as councillors do, what you do in any not-for-profit. It's your fiduciary duty to make smart choices with group money. So I know people had questions around that definition, but I think that can be defined and explained fairly simply in the annual reporting. So overall, I think you're on the right track. I agree with Councillor Vadeco. This is very close. And I applaud both you and the team for the thought that's gone into this, and also the amount of work and engagement that the community associations have amongst themselves talked with and have gotten feedback from their communities as well. I only half jokingly we usually only get this attendance if a wetland's involved, just to get myself in trouble. But I do agree that if we could just defer it for another meeting or two, just to allow a lot of these questions that came through on the weekend after the agenda was published. And so I think that just to give us some time to go back and forth. So I just think further conversation and clarity is really all that's needed, except for perhaps those 2 or 3 ideas that I suggested, and then let me know how we can advocate for that increase in funding. So that's my thoughts at this point.
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, I'd have to double check our grant policy. I think it outlines specifically $500, but I'll double check.
Okay.
And if it does not outline the specific amount, we would bring it forward through the budget process, where we would outline that for 2027 there would be $1,500 allocated for the 12 community associations. But if there is a policy update, I'll make sure that we bring that forward as well.
Sure. I'd like to find a way to make that financial change in this year,
Okay.
so to offset any of those.
Sure.
I know the cost for some of the small organizations, the new organizations, but funding makes a world of difference. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Councillor McDonald.
I agree with all the comments so far. I want to thank all the community associations who reached out. We're really lucky to have these community level champions doing this work. I really appreciate admin's effort to help organize and support. So I wanted to list a few things that I think are really, really great about this. Streamlining communications for these volunteers, I think that's fantastic. I see these investments that admin's looking to make, like the leadership conference and the leadership forum. I hope the volunteers will have time and interest in doing those things. I love to see us offering that. And then I agree with Councillor McFadden. I think $500 is inadequate for sure. I've set up nonprofits in my history, and they're up against a lot of factors, and it is expensive to get rolling in a safe, responsible way. And then my final comment is just that even if a lot of this comes down to just communication and it just needs some more time, I think even perceived barriers for volunteerism become real barriers. And so the last thing we want to do is to offer what's an enhancement that ultimately decreases activity. So I'm a big fan of giving this the time it deserves. But thank you for what you've done so far.
Yeah.
before I go around the second round, I'll add in my own comments. Yeah, similar to what my colleagues have already said, I want our action on this to be one of empowerment, not regulating something to the point that it slows it down and makes it more difficult. And I think everybody's aligned on that, including our staff. And so one of the things when I look at this insurance, I want to make sure we're not putting a burden on organizations with insurance, and if we are, then we have to come up and help cover it. But whether it's insurance or any other category in here, I'm really hoping we can also provide like all the assistance to make it as easy as possible. It's like, well, here's our requirements of the community associations to become official, and here's a package for you to do it like super simply. So your community association doesn't need to go out and scratch their heads and figure out what's going on here. What do we have to do? Is it's like if we just streamline the whole process. Here's the whole process. Sign here. You know, that's I think would be super beneficial. But yeah, certainly in favor of the deferral and incorporating the feedback, because I know we've got a number of emails and a lot of chatter from the community associations themselves that it's not there quite yet. But as has also been indicated, great work so far. I think this deferral is not by any means should be viewed as a failure or any type. It's just a natural part of the policy creation process. So thank you very much for everything, and thanks for all the community associations for your feedback and being here this evening. I'll send it back to Councillor Fadeko.
Yes, just a couple points on Councillor McFadden's on the HOA stuff. I think it would be best to say if an HOA chose to be involved, they could have that ability. And the reason that I say that is that HOAs are on a person's title, right? Like it's actually listed as a KV. Like you can't get out of it. And so I don't think people in Sunset Ridge, as being a part of that HOA and be mandated to pay an HOA fee, are necessarily thinking of it in the same way as a community association. I think Glen Eagles is a very different example of how their community has rallied over time to create, yes, it's an HOA, but really it is a community association overall. And so I think I would just leave it up if that an HOA wanted to be involved, they have that option to be involved. And I do agree with the $1,500. $500 back in the day, it did seem, you know, maybe okay, but I don't know any event, even if you're putting on an Easter egg hunt right now, that you could pay $1,500 and be able to successfully host it in any one of our communities. So I would love to see that go up. And whether or not it's to help them get insurance, host an event, I don't think it really matters, but I think we've lived on the $500 for a really long time. So I appreciate you suggesting that we up that amount.
Councillor Singh.
I just have a comment. I wanted to say thank you to all the members here present here and the great work the team has done. I think I agree with my colleagues for work in progress. So thank you for the work. Yeah.
Okay, seeing nothing else, call the question on deferral. All in favor? Carried.
All right, thank you.
See you here soon. That leads us to our next agenda item. Civic Leadership and Engagement Pilot Project. Mr. Blanchette. Maybe we'll just give it a minute for the gallery of our community associations to go home. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for coming. Okay. Please take it away.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the Civic Leadership and Engagement Notice of Motion. This presentation builds directly on the direction that you provided through the following the July 2025 Council presentation. Administration is bringing forward a proposal to test, learn, and generate Cochrane-specific evidence before committing to anything long-term. The approach has been deliberately designed to be low cost, low risk, and flexible. I'll walk you through the four proposed pilots, the financial picture, and then what I'm asking for from Council to confirm today. In July 2025, Council received a high-level feasibility assessment of the 5 civic engagement concepts and directed administration to do further analysis. Since then, we've refined those concepts in response to the feedback we heard, specifically your direction to keep things practical, avoid bureaucratic overhead, and test before committing. The The approximately $50,000 funding envelope identified through the budget deliberations has been the anchor throughout this process. The Community Association Terms of Reference was the 5th initiative, and as you know, it's been separated out and is being progressed through its own administrative track. The 4 remaining concepts are what we're presenting today as a coordinated pilot portfolio. The portfolio proposes 4 pilots and a 2-year time frame, so that would be the fall of 2026 through to the fall of 2028. Each pilot has a fixed cost estimate rather than a range, so the financial picture is more precise than what council saw during the original presentation. I anticipate that the 2026 expenses will be approximately $19,000 as we plan and launch the 3 initial pilots. Leadership Cochrane requires a community partner to operate, so while the pilot period aligns with the others, we'll need to confirm that partner before launch, which is why we're flagging 2027 budget as the formal funding vehicle for that initiative. You'll note there's no new FTEs across any of the 4, no standing advisory bodies, no governance changes. So I'll take you through each of these pilot portfolio initiatives now. The first one is the citizen panel. The citizen panel is about getting structured, representative input on the complex decisions that council faces, things like budget trade-offs, growth planning, and service levels. The key distinction here is that this is a deliberate engagement, not a survey or an open house, which administration will continue to do in its natural, normal engagement work. We will bring together a group of residents, we will give them real information, walk them through trade-offs, and they work through the issues together over 2 or 3 sessions. The output is a clear summary of what residents understood, where they are aligned, where they diverged, and it's directly usable by council and administration. We anticipate the annual cost is set at about $17,500, which covers recruitment, facilitation materials, and modest participant supports. As you already know, Cochrane piloted a version of this through the 2025 budget focus group, so we're building on something that we know that already works locally. The Mayor's Youth Council connects youth aged 15 to 21 directly to council priorities. This is not a formal committee. It has no governance authority, produces no formal recommendations, and places no administrative burden on legislative services. It's a facilitated forum, 4 to 6 sessions a year, with the mayor and members of council participating selectively. The goal is is very straightforward. Get real youth perspectives into the room when councils are working through decisions that affect Cochrane's future. Peer examples in both Calgary and Airdrie show this model works and sustains itself when it's well facilitated and connected to real issues, not just ceremonial engagement. The annual cost we expect would be around $7,500, primarily covering meals, some facilitation, materials, and minimal administrative costs. Youth on council committees. This is the lowest cost and most structurally straightforward of the 4 pilots. We'd place 1 youth participant on each of 1 to 2 advisory committees. We're suggesting the Parks and Recreation and the FCSS as starting points, but certainly council can weigh in on that as well. As you know, the Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee already has a youth participating in their work. Youth would be non-voting and advisory only. They would not count toward quorum, and they would have no governance authority. The primary investment is in proper support, pre-meeting briefings, a staff mentor, post-meeting debriefs, and a very clear orientation so they're comfortable with the process. The primary pathways for recruitment runs through the Mayor's Youth Council, so the 2 pilots are designed to complement each other. We anticipate that this would be in the neighborhood of around $5,000 on a year-over-year basis. Leadership Cochrane is slightly different from the other 3 in that it's designed to be community-led and community-owned from day 1. The town's role is as a strategic partner, funder, and connector, not the program operator. A third-party organization would run the program. We'd provide seed funding through a grant-style contribution of approximately $20,000, open the door to our staff, our facilities, and speakers, and help align content with current municipal priorities. We would anticipate that participants would pay a modest fee, and there's a potential for sponsorship as well. The pilot period aligns with the others at fall of 2026, running through to fall of 2028, but the formal funding ask will go through the 2027 budget request process to allow time to identify and confirm the right delivery partner before we commit public funds. The table on this slide captures the full financial picture, and I want to flag that these numbers are more precise than what council saw in the prior presentation. We've moved from ranges to fixed estimates for each pilot. So approximately 17,500 for the citizen panel, 7,500 for the Mayor's Youth Council, 5,000 for youth on committees, and approximately 20,000 for the Leadership Cochrane as a grant contribution. It's important to understand that every line carries no additional FTE impact. This work will be absorbed through the existing staffing capacity. I want to emphasize that these are yearly costs. And again, I anticipate that the 2026 expenses will be approximately 19,000 as we plan and launch the 3 initial pilots. A refined approach can be revisited through subsequent budget processes as we learn from the year 1 delivery. The strategic alignment and key principles, we believe that these are connected to intentional relationships, so the citizen panel supports inclusive decision-making, community trust through transparent representative input, organization resiliency, Leadership Cochrane builds long-term leadership capacity, a community-owned model ensures sustainability beyond town funding, and vibrant communities. The Mayor's Youth Council advances youth civic engagement, and youth on committees and integrates youth voice into governance. Administration is presenting the following option for Council's direction. Option 1, our recommendation. The Council received the Civic Leadership and Engagement Pilot Project Brief as information and direct administration to proceed with the development of the proposed 4-pilot portfolio for the launch in fall 2026 within the approved funding envelope of approximately $50,000 to be funded by our 2026 operating reserve. Alternatively, option 2, the Council direct administration to investigate alternative approaches to civic leadership and engagement and return with a revised proposal for Council's consideration. I'm happy to address any questions.
Okay, great. Let's get a motion to start conversation, but before we do, I might suggest that we break these out independently because there's a lot to talk about here. Councillor McFadden, did you want to make a motion?
I do want to make a motion. I'd like to move the recommended action that Council receive the Civic Leadership and Engagement Pilot Project Brief as information and to provide direction to administration to proceed with the proposed 4-pilot portfolio for launch in the fall of 2026, which operates within the approved funding envelope of approximately $50,000. I want to first thank administration for working with me on this and allowing it to expand and grow. I think as colleagues from last term and this term know, public engagement and civic engagement and how we can empower our residents to be part of our decision-making has been a strong motivator for me, and bringing forward and tying these in different ways is really important for me, and to find new and innovative ways to do things. So I appreciate administration's support in bringing this forward, and having worked with my colleagues for a while, and certainly through the election, heard the priority this council has placed on making or ensuring that our residents are part of our decision-making. And I think the ongoing understanding of the importance of civic literacy, in that our residents understand how our decisions are made, that they're part of how those decisions are made, and that they can better understand how they can participate and leverage change. So this is certainly a passion project of mine. I just wanted to identify a couple of different things. The citizen panel, this is meant to incorporate different elements, including the budget. I know my colleague Councillor Singh had identified that he wanted to advocate for a budget committee, a public committee, and I think this incorporates that need of allowing the public to engage in the budget in kind of the right context for sure. And then through the election, certainly the need to get youth better involved and to structure that in, and whether that's the mayor's youth council or a council youth council, whatever that might be, any way that we can develop the leadership within our youth and allow them to participate is certainly invaluable. I know on the Parks and Rec Committee, I had 2 youth serving, and we empowered them to be part of all of those discussions. In fact, the only change I would make to this actually would be to ask that we look for 2 youth on every council committee, just to allow them to have that partnership. It's a little bit easier to walk into a room if there's 2 youth members as opposed to just one young person facing down a whole bunch of adults. And then the Leadership Cochrane, I've shared my report on this as part of my MBA project. And this actually comes from a best-in-class example in Tennessee, where they've developed a leadership program in that city that's over 30 years old and has gone through different iterations where it was, I think now it's currently run out of their local Chamber of Commerce. At one point it was a non-for-profit, but it's engaged through that servant leadership style. And participants go through an opportunity where they would meet with the CAO, they would understand how the fire department worked, they would understand how the library works, they would engage in leadership training and have a better understanding of our civics. They would engage in some sort of a project. The examples they had there were sometimes they were fundraisers, sometimes they were small capital projects like community gardens, whatever that group wanted to come up with. And so the wins out of that in this example in Tennessee was that it had been operating for over 30 years. At the time I spoke with them, all but one member of their council had at one point been through this leadership program, and it really helped them build up a greater capacity within the community to serve and support on different community organizations, and really helped build up that civic literacy. And another one of the wins that identified is they actually had a very strong alumni group that had rolled out of there, of this leadership program that continued to advocate and be a part of the community. So it was one of, when I was going through my MBA and we're looking for kind of leading edge examples in leadership, this amazing synergy of a municipality that was doing this really resonated. And so I've certainly over the years have provided, I believe, members of staff and council my MBA work on that, so you've all seen that. But I think the Leadership Cochrane is an innovative, different way of perhaps advancing our civic leadership. The youth initiatives are very important to me, and certainly I think Cochrane's got a long track record of making sure young people are involved in our politics. They keep ending up as mayors, so I think we should continue with that. And the citizen panel has been a project I've long advocated for, in having an informed group of citizens that we go to as regular touch points. So I ask my colleagues' support in this. I know it's a little bit unique, but I think it'll certainly pay in spades in the improvement in civic literacy and engagement we'll get out of it.
Councillor Federico.
Thank you. I too will support this. I know this has been a long running idea of Councillor McFadden. She's brought it forward a number of different times, but I do have some questions on each of these. When will the actual framework for, I know you have kind of an outline here that's attached as to what each of these groups, kind of their role and function are, but when will the actual framework or maybe terms of reference or whatever come back to council for approval, or is what we're kind of seeing kind of that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Federico. No, I believe we should be bringing that back for one more discussion with council for sure. I think it's something that it'll be primarily led through our communications and engagement team, essentially with a little bit of support along the way through Mr. Knox's team with Director of Social Development. But I believe that in the next couple of months that we should be able to bring the 3 primary pilots. The leadership one will be a little bit more evolved, a little bit more development, but I think we can bring that back, sort of the essential components of those 3 pilots to you here in the next couple of months.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And so this is kind of going to lead into some of my questions. For the mayor and youth one, rather than just having them discuss kind of council issues or council topics, I'd really like to turn it over to them, and I think this was part of Mayor and Youth Council from years ago, where they could actually use the opportunity to perhaps pitch a project or a proposal or a fundraiser and allow them to come forward to council to look for either council approval. I think them just listening to them give feedback on what council's already discussing takes away some of the opportunity that our youth really want to be a part of. And I've heard it many times over that they have some great ideas, but oftentimes nobody ever does anything with them. And I would like to give them an opportunity within this group that, hey, if you have something that collectively you all want to work together, please come pitch it to council and let us discuss it, rather than them just talking about what council is discussing and getting their youth point of views. I think there could be a collaboration of both. The citizen panel, I was curious of how they will be chosen and if this will become just like many of our other committees, where council will get a list of who wants to be on this panel, and then we can provide possibly some feedback rather than it just being an internal function of a department.
Through the mayor to Councillor Fideko, I mean, we can look at alternatives for sure. Currently, with our budget focus group as a citizen panel, they make application directly to the administration for that process. So we could look at that, and certainly I'll talk with my colleagues about the best way to approach that, but we could look at both an application and then bring those applications for review. We want to make sure that it's well represented across the community for sure. And that's what we do currently with the budget focus group, but we definitely want to make sure that there's some youth involved, that there's people from different experiences and lived experiences. So we think that's really critical. And then making sure that we can vet their true availability and interest in being part of it, but certainly we can look at that.
Perfect. And then the same thing with the leadership, Cochrane. I understand the idea of having kind of an organization kind of take that on. However, what I don't want it to be is an organization only including members that are part of that organization, because that to me then becomes, it doesn't become an open opportunity for everybody to be involved. If you have to have membership within that organization who's leading it, then that to me takes away that opportunity. So I just want to be clear that if an organization is leading it, that they don't have to be a member of that particular organization. And then the only other question that I really had for now was just how is all this info going to come back to council? Obviously, there's going to be engagement happening in different areas between the youth and then the citizen panel, and then how is council ever going to hear back of all this information?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Fideko. We'll work on that to kind of create an opportunity so there's some natural rhythm as to when these things are happening. As I said, we will do a 2-year pilot on these pilots just to sort of get a sense of where they're at. But I think there's some opportunity through discussion around actually some of these groups potentially presenting actually to council. So there will be that engagement and interaction point. But we'll work with you in terms of how that would best suit schedule and what your interests are.
Okay, and then the only last point that I have is that I hope that council themselves, I mean, especially with the youth, a youth being on a council committee, that perhaps take this out of administration and we as council members can kind of mentor some of our youth through this rather than paying money to have staff kind of lead it. I'm pretty sure that all of us who sit on committees overall could perhaps mentor. And I would like to see a little bit more involvement from council in some way, shape, or form, be a part of all of these. Because if we're talking about engagement, it's not just about throwing ideas out there and saying, hey, here, engage. But where is council kind of coming back and being involved with all of these? And not that we want to be taking it over, but I think having representation in every single one of these is important for a council member to be there and in a varied approach, I guess. That's it. But I like it so far.
Councillor, go.
Thank you for the presentation. And for the chat last week, I was really happy that I could give some early feedback into this. And I'm just really excited to see this all come to fruition. As mentioned, we often talk about young people wanting to be more engaged, but I find that there's often just not the space for it. And so I'm really happy to see this is being made. When it comes to the specifics, I know I mentioned this to you, but I would really like to see a youth committee present to council. And I know Councillor Fideko mentioned that. I think that's a really important piece, and as well as the civic literacy piece. I was on the youth council years ago, and I just felt like that piece was missing a little bit. So I really want to emphasize that aspect. And I know I mentioned as well that just I guess, I find one of the issues is that youth don't understand what's realistic, maybe. And so I really want to make sure that we're, being realistic and saying, maybe if you want something that's $3 million, for example, we can't do that. So I really want to add that aspect to it. I think the civic literacy part is really important. And I'm also really happy to see that this is from ages 15 to 21. I believe the one I was on was just high school. And I think it's really important to capture that age range in there as well. We have youth that are really invested. I've had youth that have emailed me and that have asked to meet with me because they have concerns or they have ideas, and it's really great to see. So I'm just really excited to see this come forward. I had one small question. When it comes to the citizens panel, I guess, what is that budget comprised of, I guess? What's there?
So there's the element, I think, that's really important to understand, through the chair to Councillor Gale, is that needs to really be done well, and so we would bring in facilitation for those sessions, just to make sure that that's done extremely well. But one of the things that the breakdown in those opportunities is when they're not facilitated well and people don't feel like they're being heard. So that's a large part of that would be around that facilitation, because we would have a number of ongoing meetings. So we would want to start there and make sure that that's done well.
Okay, that makes sense, and that answers my question. So thank you for this, and I'm very excited.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you. As Cochrane continue to grow, so do the expectation and responsibilities we carry as a community. Residents have been clear in their desire for a greater transparency, stronger engagement, and more meaningful opportunity to understand and help shape the financial decisions that impact their daily life. I hear that feedback, I respect it, and I agree. Strengthening public trust and demonstrating responsible steward of public funds is core responsibility of the council. Initially, I brought forward the concept of finance or corporate advisory committee to support this objective. However, after further discussion and research, I recognize that proposed citizen panel pilot may achieve similar outcome on a broader and more flexible scale without duplicating efforts or creating additional structure complexity. Given that this is a pilot initiative, I support maintaining a live and breathable approach, one that allows us to adapt, refinance, and improve the model we learned that work best for our community. In supporting this in principle, I would appreciate further clarification from the administration on a few points. To the proposed panel, 20 to 30 participants, 1 or 2 panels per year, provide a sufficient range of perspective to the meaningful, informed, complex topics such as budget and growth.
Through the chair to Councillor Singh, it has worked in the past with our budget focus group, so I would expect that we would have similar results where we would have the citizen panel group coming together with a facilitated session. Could be around conversations around growth or services. So I anticipate that we would get the same value in terms of the input and the information that we get currently in the budget process.
Sure. And the second question, how will the participant for citizen panel be selected to ensure a diverse and representative cross-section of the community? For example, age, background, lived experience, and perspective are taken into consideration.
Again, through the chair to Councillor Singh, that's how we consider and review the budget focus group. So we would it's our anticipation we would do a very similar process to make sure that we have the right demographics and right representation.
Sure, thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Mr. Blanchette, are you excited about these pilot projects?
Through the chair to Councillor McDonald, I am. I think it's an element that within the community that I do get excited about. I've seen some of this work through our community innovation ecosystem. It's a little different, but not dissimilar, and I know you're familiar with that as well. So I think when you get community, whether they're young, sort of middle-aged or my age, I think there's a great opportunity for people to come together and have an experience around the things that they like, what they want to see differently, and the struggles and challenges that they have. But there's a lot of good insight that's available to us through our community. So I am very excited about conversations around growth, conversations around service that this will naturally bring to us as administration. So yes, I am.
That's great. I thought I could sense that as you talked about it, and I was hoping I was reading that right. I'm excited about it too. I'm excited to support it. One thing I just want to say is that our local BGC does such great work honing leadership skills in our youth. as do our high school programs. So I hope that we will leverage what's already being done in the community, maybe for recruitment tactics, to make sure those youth are not necessarily being funneled in or anything, but just to learn what's already being done and make sure that we've got a broad scope when we look at recruitment, and just validating that work that's already happening by our community partners. And then in Leadership Cochrane, I'm particularly interested in this one. Any sense at this point how the delivery partner would be chosen? And would it be a local partner who would deliver that?
Through the mayor to Councillor McDonald, our preference would be a local partner for sure in terms of being able to understand the unique environment within Cochrane. The next step would really to be for our team to really build out what are the requirements. What are we looking for a partner to be successful in this space? And that would really guide our decision making from there. So there could be elements where you could use, say, the Chamber of Commerce, not that we're putting them in that space, that they may be a primary partner, but there may be other partners that want to partner along with that have unique skill sets in leadership and or innovation. So we would look at how we can best utilize what we have in our community to make it cost-effective and a really valuable and rich experience for the participants.
Sure. Okay. I'm really excited to see how that one
We don't want to
evolves.
be too prescriptive in that. I want to make sure that we're open and looking at what unique things are out there. We won't even know until we actually start to really engage in that. That's why this conversation is critical, to get that direction so we can actually formally have those conversations. So thank you.
I really appreciate the fluidity of this. I think we don't often get to see things that are still kind of taking shape, and everyone is at the same level of comfort with the fact that it's still going to take shape. So I'm excited to watch it evolve.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that it's also presented as a pilot project and 2-year terms is what I believe I've heard. I understand 1, 2, and 3 pretty well, I think. Number 4, I'm not clear on what's happening there. I was hoping you can help me out with it. I just heard Councillor McDonald talk about we'd be funding someone, you just mentioned maybe the Chamber of Commerce that would put together a leadership program. How would the funding work? How would we, I don't understand it.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson. So what we would be doing is establishing a grant application process so we would first off identify the kind of programming and kind of delivery service that we would be looking for, and then we would establish a grant program offering for applicants to be able to apply for through the town, to be able to have funding to be able to help deliver the program.
Okay, and just to give me, because it still just seems vague to me, could you give me an example of maybe in another community or what you might expect that would look like? Just give me one partner organization. Maybe if it was the Chamber of Commerce, what would they be delivering? And
Certainly.
would it be $20,000 just a grant one time to the Chamber of Commerce in this circumstance? And what would they do with that money? I still don't understand.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, I'll use actually the Germantown example. So the municipality, the local government in Germantown in Tennessee provide a grant to their local Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure if it's $20,000 or $25,000. They provide that grant funding to the partner. Then there is a participant fee, and there's also some sponsorship from local businesses to be able to top that up to get the total number, call it $35,000 to deliver that leadership program. So Germantown makes a $20,000 investment. Participants pay sort of $7,500 in total numbers, and then they have some business sponsorship to bring up the total for that program delivery. Does that help?
A little bit, and so then they would be training up a certain set of leaders with leadership development.
Yes, yeah, there would
many?
be elements of civic literacy, so learning about the municipality, genuine leadership skills and experience around building their servant leadership, and then just dealing with issues that are present in terms of what community leadership looks like. So there'd be a range of leadership and educational opportunities for those burgeoning leaders.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the funding for the other 3, I think you said it was mostly for meals. Is that the allocation? Is that where the money is going? I don't understand where the money's spent.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson. So if you look at the citizen panel, the majority of the funds going there are for the facilitations, presentations through a professional facilitator. And there would be an elements of materials and some meals. Then looking at the Mayor's Youth Council, there would be some orientation work, some materials being developed for them as well. And then the last one is the youth on council committees, a lower cost, but again, we'd be doing some orientation, some meals and material presentation for the participants.
Okay, thank you. With that explanation, I appreciate Councillor McFadden's genuine enthusiasm about this. I can see ways that it feels like to me that 1, 2, and 3 could go well, and I like the response that I'm likely to get back the whole council bench just to get back on the success of those programs after 2 years. So I do feel comfortable with those. Number 4 leaves me uncomfortable. I feel like we're possibly straying outside the lines of where I like to see municipal finances spent, which I admit is a narrow lane for me. And so I'd be in support of 1, 2, and 3 based on what I've heard, but 4 I don't feel comfortable with yet. So that's where I would fall. And I did appreciate the mayor saying that we should probably break them out into 4 separate things because they're all so different. And so for me, it's 1, 2, and 3 comfortable, 4 uncomfortable, be how I feel.
So maybe after we're done a little more conversation, somebody can move to split these things out. I'm excited to comment on this, though. This is one of those opportunities where I'm sitting here eagerly waiting for my time to speak last. You know, speaking last kind of sucks, I get to say. What I'm really excited about with this item on the agenda this evening is I thought one of the most important things we should try and do this term is find ways to lean into what councillors really want to do and give everybody an opportunity to champion something they're passionate about. And this does it on a number of levels for a number of councillors. And that is actually why I'm most excited about this. And so with that in mind, I have a few comments. On citizen panel number 1, I actually had to hear about this thing a few times before I could understand what exactly it was. But my understanding is that it's generally a focus group, an advanced, very involved focus group, correct? So I think it would be very beneficial if we called it a citizen panel focus group to clearly articulate that to the public. And I would hope to get council support on that idea. And I also think having a citizen panel focus group is going to it's going to set the right context when people are invited to participate in it. They're understanding what they're there for. But I also think there's a lot of people who would be excited to participate in a focus group. I always see these things on TV where people get in a room and they talk about like how they respond to things. That sounds like a fun experience that I think a lot of people are going to want to be part of, especially when it pertains to their community. And so my comment on point 1 was I think citizen panel focus group would be a really great name for it, just to communicate why people would be interested and what it is there to do. The Mayor's Youth Council, I would like to go also propose a naming change to Cochrane Youth Council or Council Youth Council, because I don't want it to just be that it's my project. In fact, it is not my project. This was mostly led by Councillor McFadden getting the conversation here and then Mr. Blanchette, but also Councillor Gale has expressed a real interest in taking her lead on youth engagement as one of her top priorities on this term, which segues me into my next batch of comments. It would be really cool, I think, if we could do something a little less orthodox than we normally do, and that is intentionally find ways to allow councillors to dive into each of these items. If we end up having a councillor representative, I might humbly suggest that we tap Councillor Gale to do the Council Youth Council and allow her to have a bit of an elevated role in setting the terms of reference and presenting that to council and sharing her ideas and then potentially sitting on it and being involved. Her and I had a great coffee on Friday where we talked all about a whole bunch of ideas of what she wants to bring to Cochrane's youth. And I think there's a lot of energy there that would be fantastic for Cochrane's youth as well as our organization. Similar to that, if we're moving forwards with Leadership Cochrane, my understanding is, Councillor McFadden, you actually wrote a thesis to this very extent. So? If you could comment.
It wasn't a thesis, but I did share the paper, which I got an A on. Yeah, this one's near and dear to my heart. It's not orthodox. It's unique, and the fact that it had like 30 plus years success with the community that I talked to, and an element that I didn't hear maybe discussed or highlighted so much in the conversations around it is it brings on an annual cohort. So you would have, I think 15 to 20 people at most, and there's value in this. Like, you're going to get some designated training. My lens has always been to make it servant leadership training, and then also skills around like how to serve on a board, all of those roles, to understand how the municipality works and how it all fits together. Because we get, the libraries works with us, but they're not under municipal authority. The RCMP, we pay them, but there's a different relationship there. And so to help people really understand the uniqueness that is municipal government, because often people just think, we are the kingdom of Cochrane, and and we actually, as much as we can lobby and advocate for changes in EMS and health, that's outside of our lane. So if we can, anything we can do to help with this. So, but back to the cohort, it's recruited on an annual basis. There is a fee to participate, which adds value to it. Also, to make sure there's no barrier to that, there is a scholarship that would be created as well, so that certainly in my years there, if I was asked to chip in $300 to participate in something, that'd be a barrier for me. So it was very important to me, and the Leadership Germantown folks as well, that there is a scholarship piece there so that there is no barrier to participation, but that it has value because you are paying. And so then you are contributing. What they did is a meeting, kind of a Saturday a month for almost a year, where you would go through and lean in and learn. And I think there was actually a retreat they would do. And at the end of the day, that cohort would also produce something of their choice. So whether they had different fundraisers, they had different capital projects they delivered on. But yeah, it was a really innovative space. And I stumbled across it when my MBA course, we were establishing systems, and we had an organizational excellence. And this was part of Germantown had been identified for organizational excellence and having this different method of providing civic leadership. So it's not orthodox, it's certainly different, but I really like it because it empowers the community in a different way. And I want to applaud the administration for putting everything out there as a 2-year pilot, because I would hope the citizen panel would stay with us for a long time, and certainly the mayor's youth council or council's youth council, whatever we name it, those in my time of council have ebbed and flow in their buy-in, but I would love that to lock in for something that we don't just, it doesn't get lost term to term or depend on a mayor of the day or something. So really like to that, and the youth on council committees, if that just becomes part of our culture in how we engage and run our committees. So yeah, I appreciate council's broad support on this, but yeah, leadership Cochrane, like citizen panel, Edmonton's got great examples of citizen panels, and if you want to change the name so that it resonates more, all for it. But yeah, citizen panels are a fairly standard way of engaging and having an informed group to engage with. The youth councils are kind of evolutions of what we've done in the past, and the leadership Cochrane is a brand new creature. And so I think possible partnerships within town would be, potentially the chamber, potentially Innovate Cochrane, potentially, the library, just brainstorming before I get any calls from somebody saying I shouldn't have volunteered them. Yeah, and I think it would also allow that organization to, expand on their capabilities and capacities as well. So wins across the board, in my opinion. So thank you for your time.
So to make sure the councillors who are particularly passionate about these things have an opportunity to really kind of step up their engagement in the development of it, so will there be an opportunity where another terms of reference is going to be coming forwards for each of these 4 things, where those councillors would have the opportunity to review it and then make their further pitch on how to refine the vision of these things? Would that be the best way?
To the mayor, yes, we would need to do some work to bring kind of like a project overview. So not so much in terms of reference per se, but more of a project overview for what we're trying to achieve. And we could certainly bring that back to council, as I described, in the next couple of months, to get some more information and then some further alignment around what your interests are. For sure. That's a possibility, for sure.
So then I would humbly request that if these all get approved, that we make sure we give all the councillors an adequate opportunity to have their say on the whole thing. And then further to that point, I was really happy to hear Councillor Singh was seeing some overlap between the citizen panel and his financial initiative. So the same comments that I made about Councillor Gale with the youth council, Councillor McFadden with leadership, also applies to Councillor Singh's passion for community engagement through the panel. So if we can create opportunities for council to be involved, I think that would be just fantastic. And then my last comment on the council on committees, I really liked what Councillor Fedeko said about us councillors really engaging. I think if us councillors are not willing to make the time to be part of these meetings, even via Teams or a Zoom call, we shouldn't ask our administration to do it. So if we're going to ask them to do it, we should make the time to do it. So maybe whatever committees we're on, we also take the time to reach out to the youth on our committees. That was a great idea. So anything else? Any more lights? So do we want to move forward with just one vote on all 4, or do we want to move these one at a time? Somebody would have to move to, right now the motion is to approve all 4. Unless somebody else makes another motion, I'm going to call that vote. All right, I shall call the question on approving all 4 of these. All in favor? All opposed? That is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, do we want to take a 10-minute break and then come back for the next one? we live now? We are live. Okay. Hit send. Okay, let's restore the meeting. 2025, resume the meeting. 2025 Development Summary Report. Take it away. Yep.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here this evening to share with you Planning Services presentation for the 2025 Development Summary Report. Right off the bat, I just want to first acknowledge an error in the Council report section, both in the executive summary and the background section of the report. This is in reference to the land supply information, so it's showing 2024 data, not the 2025 data. That's actually in the report itself. So the development summary report and my presentation will have the 2025 information, but the council report only has the 2024 information, so I apologize for that.
Sorry to interject. Will we be able to update that online for anybody looking for these facts?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cochrane is still growing.
Respectfully, Council, I just want to clarify, I apologize. We cannot upload a new attachment to the agenda, but if the attachment is published on our website, we will make sure that the data is updated in that.
Okay, thank you.
So Cochrane is still growing and fast. We saw another big jump in population, housing, and business activity in 2025. Our population is now estimated at 39,385. This is unofficial population, up approximately 2,400 residents from 2024, which is a 6.4% increase. This is one of the biggest growth rates we've seen in the past decade. More homes, or more people mean more homes. We had 913 new dwelling units constructed in 2025, up from 770 last year, bringing us back to construction values or construction levels that we saw 10 years ago. This was seen through 12 active growth neighborhoods. Planning Services is experiencing similar numbers in development permit applications from last year, as well as similar volumes in subdivisions and compliance applications, further verifying the growth within the community. This report gives us a clear snapshot of where we are, what's changing, and what lies ahead. It also follows the growth study in providing information on our current and future land supplies. This report includes reporting on development activity from the area structure plan through neighborhood plan stages, as well as the day-to-day applications and processing of land use applications, subdivisions, development permit applications, and building permit and certificate of compliances. Planning then uses this information to project future population and how much land supply is available. It is planning's understanding that the reporting on this since 2018 has helped to inform Council's approach to tackling various growth issues and being able to better anticipate the coming challenges and opportunities for Cochrane. So where are we expanding? Planning is tracking, like I said, 12 growth key communities, and some areas are expanding faster than others. A few highlights here: Greystone was the fastest growing residential community in 2025. Southbow Landing has just begun their build out of approximately 2,900 units are planned for that community. In addition, there's a large commercial and employment spaces to the east of that community. For the 12 growth communities, a total of approximately 17,600 units are proposed, with 10,350 already built. Now we'll look at some further development specifics. Subdivision activity remains strong. Planning received 19 applications in 2025, creating 1,144 new lots. 1,112 of those were for residential use. This keeps us on pace with the growth demands and ensures enough land is available for future development. Looking at development permit statistics, Planning Services processed 240 development permit applications, which is consistent with the previous year. Last year we had 242. The Planning Services team continues to experience impacts of growth, which include elevated application levels. This puts pressure on meeting our MGA requirements for application processing times, which I will speak to shortly. These DPs cover everything from residential types to new businesses and commercial and industrial spaces. Businesses and non-residential development is steady. 42 permits were for commercial land use and home-based businesses, on par with last year. This includes new commercial buildings, expansions, and commercials and / industrial site changes. Planning has seen a small decline in accessory suite applications from last year. Last year we had 95, this year we had 82, or in 2025, sorry, we had 82. However, an increase in multi-unit housing to 31 applications compared to the 20 seen in 2024. So this signals an increased demand for more diverse housing options, whether for affordability or rental flexibility. Looking at the processing time of development permit applications, the average processing time was 62 days. Our MGA legislated timeline is 60 days to render a decision, so we're just a little bit above that. Our fastest approval time was the same day. Our longest approval time was 303 days. The difference between the fastest and the longest approval time speaks to the different application types and the level of application completeness and complexity of each individual application that planning services receives. Building permits tell a bigger story. We issued 1,541 building permits in 2025, including 1,913 dwelling unit permits. Well, that's well above our 10-year average of 585. Cochrane is seeing more housing demand than we've seen in a long time, again confirming growth in population. Our previous highs were in 2014 and 2015. Certificate of compliance applications are most often a condition of sale of a property and thus measure the activity level of the housing market within Cochrane. Last year, planning received 779 certificate of compliance applications, a 7.2% increase from 2024. 97% of these applications were completed within our target of 10 days. The development summary report also includes non-residential land supply, a key indicator of business growth potential. This speaks specifically to the non-residential lands that contain developable lands that have received approval. This does not include non-residential lands that have already been developed. So a total available commercial and industrial land across 9 neighborhoods offering developable lands is 39.28 hectares. Where is the most available land available per business development? So South Bow Landing has the highest amount at 20.59 hectares, which is a major mixed-use area in the making. Greystone follows at 10.68 hectares, prime for commercial and industrial use, and then Heritage Hills has a small amount at 3.78 hectares, providing new business opportunities on the horizon. This tells us that we have some room for business expansion as we focus on our goal of 80%, 20% residential, non-residential mix. So based on our current building trends, how much land do we have left to develop? Please note that this is speaking specifically on residential growth. So on the left side, you'll see some stars next to the condensed planning hierarchy. These stars are reflective where the land supply meets the planning hierarchy. So for example, the short-term supplies, 2,405 units, or 4.1 to 4.5 years worth of land. This is what the subdivisions prior to 2025. So this included just 2024 and before and prior. Star 2 includes the 2025 approvals. So our midterm supply of 3,162 units, or 5.4 to 6 years worth of new development through the 2025 subdivision approvals. And then our long-term potential up to 13,301 additional units, which could support a population of 73,968 over 22 to 25 years. This is reflective of all of our approved ASPs, neighborhood plans, and current land use approvals in place. Looking ahead, so Cochrane is still in the major growth phase with more people, more homes, and more business opportunities. Land supply is decreasing, but we still have over a decade worth of approved developable land. Business and commercial growth remains steady with 39 hectares of land available for future businesses. Moving forward, we need to keep an eye on, of course, land supply trends to avoid housing shortages in the future, support commercial and business growth to balance expansion, and invest in infrastructure proactively so we're ready before any issues arise. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. I would ask that council please receive this report as information, and I will be joined by Mark Krasinski, Director of Community Growth, to aid me in any questions that you may have.
Okay, council, can I get a motion? Councillor Singh.
I'll make a motion to accept this report as information, or that's, yeah. Few, yeah, sure. Few question. I appreciate the inclusion of non-residents land supply as a metric to better understand the town's capacity to support economic growth and complete communities alignment in Envision Cochrane 2015. I have a few clarifying questions. From a strategic point, is the current supply of non-residential land considered sufficient to meet the projected demand? Additionally, are these lands appropriately zoned to support commercial and industrial development?
Through the chair to Councillor Singh, I'll touch on your second question first, and then I'll pass over the first part of the question to Mr. Krasinski. Yes, they are sufficiently zoned. They have the land use approvals and the required neighborhood plan approvals and area structure plan approvals to meet those requirements for the commercial or industrial lands. Now, they could always go through a rezoning or an application for land use redesignation, but as it's seen right now, this is reflective of what's been approved. And then I'll pass over to the first part of the question.
Yeah, thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Singh. With respect to your question around whether or not we have sufficient employment lands to meet the demand in the community, that's something we qualitatively know we do not, and there's a need for additional lands. Quantitatively, that's one of the things that we're looking at through our economic development strategy being led by Nicole Hanna and the Economic Development Department, is looking to provide a little bit more rigor to that qualitative understanding. Particularly in the area of things like small bay industrial and smaller industrial parcels that allow a business to scale are something that we don't really have. When you see 20 acres of developable land, hectares, sorry, in South Bow Landing, majority of that is still predominantly kind of your vehicle-based commercial. So these are metrics we're looking to verify. Last year was a step in the right direction towards the 80-20% goal. However, as you'll note, there was approximately 50 non-residential applications approved, which was 23% of the 240, moving us closer to the 80-20, but additional land supply or changes in land use would be required in order to get to that objective of 80-20.
Sure. And thank you, and I'll wait for further question after my colleagues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Federico.
Thank you. This may not be the appropriate place to ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I'm curious what is happening in Sunset. As I read through the different neighborhoods, I know that we're still waiting on that second access, and now it says that, you know, it depends on neighborhood count and other highway upgrades. I believe I've been listening to the same conversation about proposed progress of the neighborhood growth since probably 2018, and we still only have one access. Do you have an update on when we're going to see the secondary access, as well as the community enhancements such as their community center and everything else? As a person who lives in Sunset, I find it probably one of the most frustrating communities that we have, that just doesn't seem to have a lot of stuff that was maybe eventually sold to residents.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Federico, I'll start the answer, and then we'll see if CEO Handman has anything additional he'd like to add to for context as well. Effectively, the community enhancements, the homeowners association site and the school site are in what's called phase 23, which there's a requirement for secondary access before we can approve a subdivision in any future phases within Sunset. We're aware of some challenges in financing a permanent secondary access with controlled intersection, and try and resolve that. We've been working with the developer to identify potential alternatives to expedite that. At this point, we don't have full certainty, other than the developer is not interested in moving forward with the construction of the full permanent intersection at this time. There are some positive developments on the horizon, namely the Rohit developing what we're referring to as North Sunset, which brings another developer to the table, another funding source that may overcome some of the financial hurdles. And I have been working internally with some of my peers. I wouldn't want to get into it right now in a public forum, risk of possibly exposing the organization to some potential liabilities of information that isn't fully publicly available yet, but discussions are ongoing. And we'll look to see Hyman if he has anything additional he wants to add.
Thank you, Mr. Krasinski. I think he's done a great job in terms of providing an update and a summary. I would share that Melcor in particular is very eager to move forward with their next phase, but providing an additional access, whether it is a permanent or an interim, is something that they're eager to explore. We've had some recent conversations, and as part of that, we've talked about a amendment to the neighborhood plan or the neighborhood plan that would be very transparent and provide opportunity for not only council's review, but certainly the community's insights to inform that at a future public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation and for your team's work on this. It's kind of funny. We're like, and Cochrane had another record year, and we say it's like no big deal because we've been doing it for so long. But I really think it should be something that is celebrated. It means Cochrane is still a community of choice, and also the fact that you're pretty much hitting your targets on your approvals, even if you're just a little bit short, and I'm sure we'll get the reasoning how that could be improved. But you know, as much as a lot of the conversations for our community, and I have this same thing from when I moved here, I'd like it to stop and just be the community that it was. I think the fact that we are continuing to build that community of choice and people are really excited to move here and be part of our community is a win. Especially saying that we're keeping that small town feel, even as we've moved from, I think it was 13,000 when I was first elected, and we're just under 40,000 now. So I think we're managing to do this growth with that small town feel. So now having said that and thanking your team for that great work, I wanted to follow up on a question from Councillor Singh around the non-residential demands and the tax split. You said we weren't kind of getting close to the 80-20 and then we fall away. I missed in your report if you'd actually broken out where we are on the 80-20 split.
Through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, we didn't specifically reference that through the report. Due to some resourcing constraints, we pretty much emulated the report from last year and provide some consistency and comparability between the reports. But looking for opportunities to enhance the reports and speak more directly to some of the guidance and direction identified in Vision Cochrane 2050 is an enhancement that with a little bit more time and resources and runway, we would definitely like to pursue further.
Excellent. And so one of the projects we're putting time and resources to right now is the economic development work. Can you just give me a refresher on when that might be reporting back? Because as I understood from your presentation, that's where we might be able to get some of that quantitative data about what we are actually needing in the non-residential space.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, our intention is to bring something back to council, either a formal council session or some sort of facilitated workshop with council in early to mid-May. That would reflect essentially a what we heard report, with the final report intended to be with council for approval prior to the summer break for council. So what we're trying to set up here, similar to Envision Cochrane 2050, is they'll get the what we heard report, they'll take that back, they'll work on a draft, they'll present the draft back, likely near the end of June, and then bring back any additional refinements from council in early July, and hopefully have a product that is endorsable by council.
Excellent, thank you. And in your report, you had noted that we're falling slightly behind on the MGA mandate for the approval windows. And I'm sure part of the answer to that would be we would like to have more staff. But I know that the province's Bill 28, they're advocating for this automatic yes window. And I was just wondering what considerations we've given to where we might be able to actuate the automatic yes window. I know in the report that I was reading, they were thinking it, for things like decks or fences, that type of thing, and maybe even, basement suites. Any thoughts about how we can, I don't know, if that comes into reality, if we can do the automatic yes, that could speed things up? And then also, I'm thinking there's probably some software, some sort of tool that would be necessary to make that actually happen. Can you gentlemen speak to that at all?
Through the mayor to Councillor McFadden, we have a number of initiatives actually underway to look at this from a few different perspectives, not just in terms of resources, but building on the feedback from council on the technology needs assessment from last year. We've been working with our consultant on responding to council inquiries around the return on investment and council's questions on that to help quantify the value of a technology solution and how it might reduce the effort and speed up not just our review and approval timelines, but create capacity in the other work that we do too, thinking of like following up on development permit inquiries from different developers. Right now it's a very manual process, so that can take a lot of time, which detracts from our availability to work on applications. With respect to the Bill 28, there's other things we can look at, like triaging the development permits of the greatest impact, and of course, if we're going to have an automatic yes, to your point, leaving that for a deck or a hot tub, maybe a secondary suite, rather than a large multi-unit development where we wouldn't want to be stuck with an approval of something that we haven't been able to do the proper due diligence for. Looking at our historical numbers, it's going to be a challenge to be able to meet that window without some level of automatic approval that we might not want to see. But we started laying the foundations a couple of years ago as well with the documentation of our processes. Now we've been bringing through a technology needs assessment. The next steps are looking at how we can improve and enhance those processes. But we've been wanting to give an opportunity to evaluate the potential impacts of a technology solution and a process review to minimize the amount of times we're doing changes, both for the burden that that can put on our staff resources and also the confusion that it can create in the community with multiple different changes and approaches, looking for more of a comprehensive one. We've also been advancing benchmarking. Later this week, even I'm going to meet with one of my peers in Leduc to better understand their permit processing application timelines. They're fairly well reviewed. Different challenges, much easier topography to develop in Leduc. One of the things I think is important to reference and when we look at the report is a lot of the easy to develop land in Cochrane has been developed. So what we're seeing is increasing complexity in all the development permit applications as well, as we look at irregular shaped parcels with servicing constraints and topographical challenges being a lot of the lands that are left for development. So that's adding more complexity to it. But I'm also working with my peers in other departments, particularly engineering services, to identify opportunities to expedite review timelines. We have a lot of the civil land component of our development permit application process reviewed by third parties. And the request for standing offer that we did last year is a step in the right direction to provide other opportunities to try and enhance and speed up that component of the review. So there's all a bunch of things going on at once. We're hoping they're all going to align, but additional information I think this council will see back on, both in terms of technology, and hopefully we'll see some information on benchmarking later. If not before budget this year, then definitely in Q4 and Q3.
Okay. And so you'd also identified on your reporting, you managed to get one approval done in 1 day, and then your worst case scenario was, 383 days or something? Yeah, I know. So, but then you'd identify, so part of that flaw or delay is an incomplete application, right? So I don't know if that should actually count towards the record if the applicant hasn't provided a complete application, whether your go counts at that point. But I'm diving way into the weeds on this.
No, that's it's a great question. Thank you through the chair to Councillor McFadden. I just want to kind of touch back on what Mark was talking about, especially with Bill 28. We've been in conversations with the government of Alberta, with all of the other municipalities as well, when this is coming through, and so through the actual review of any kind of permits or applications that come up, there will have to be some changes. If this carries forward, there would likely be changes to the MGA as well, because there's requirements within the MGA that we have to also meet through circulation and giving additional parties adequate time to review those. And so if we're striving towards, or if they want us to strive towards that automatic yes, that will have to be addressed. So again, things will happen in that regard too. For your second question, Yes, it really depends on the complexity of these applications and the requirements itself. We have planning services in 2024 started updating our checklists, so we have more robust checklists for applications. And so we have, previously we would just kind of take something in. We have 20 days to deem an application complete, again, an MGA requirement. We are much better at that level than actually rendering a decision. But now that our applications are more fulsome, more robust, and identify things that we need to see through our additional parties, our additional partners within the review process, such as civil land development, identifying things beforehand, we're getting better at those timelines and reducing that back and forth to, okay, deeming something incomplete, deeming complete. Ultimately, we don't want to deem something incomplete. We want to work with, we strive for customer service. So we want to make sure that we're providing the best customer service that we can and trying to get the application moving in the right direction. So it does depend on the complexity of the application itself, but it also depends on the completeness of the application itself as well, to your point. But we are addressing that through, hopefully, updating our checklist, so we're getting that information earlier.
Right, bit by bit.
Absolutely,
Right,
yeah.
that's how continuous improvement works. Awesome. And I think last question, I think you'd identified in your report that for subdivided lands, we had, I think, about 4 or 5 years worth of developable land available.
Yep, correct. Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, I think it's up to 6 years of with the subdivisions that were approved in 2025.
Okay, right.
Yep.
So then I guess my question, so 6 years seems like a fairly safe number to for our builders and developers to build into and to make sure that we're not creating or we're not meeting housing demand and impacting affordability there. But any forecasts that you can share with us, or maybe you can't, on any subdivisions that we're expecting, subdivision applications that we're expecting to come forward next?
Absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, we will get a number of applications as we're working through, especially within the south of Cochrane, as we're working through the construction of the River Heights Reservoir expansion. That is holding up some subdivision applications until substantial completion. We're not there yet, quite yet, but we will probably be in the next little bit. I don't want to give a timeline or anything right now, but that will likely trigger some applications coming forward. And we're seeing more applications coming in or looking for endorsement in Heartland, in West Hawk as well. So there's applications that are ongoing for sure that we're looking to advance towards endorsement.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. Thank you for the very thorough update, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Councillor Gill.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have maybe a little bit of a side question, but I'm really curious about our live-work units and how those are, how are they classified, I guess, in terms of our numbers? And maybe this is a little more, I don't know, of a generalized question, but do you think there is lots of demand for those types of units in Cochrane, the combined, where you live upstairs and you have a business in the bottom?
Through the chair to Councillor Gale, actually, yeah, we are seeing some more requests for that, just general information. We didn't specifically break it out in the report itself. I can happily get you some information. I know we have some in Sunset, we have some in Fireside that are completely used. And so I think there is some desire for sure with future subdivisions or future neighborhood plans that will include those types of alternative dwellings for sure. But I can get you some more information on specifics for those if you'd like.
Yeah, I only know of those two, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I was just curious about those details, but when it comes to, I guess, counting them, do you consider them as a mixed residential slash business, or what is it counted as?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gale, there's a number of different land uses that do enable mixed use, so it does fall within that as well. And then other activities we have going on later in the year, approved by council in the 2026 budget, the area redevelopment plan for Old Town and the East End is an opportunity that I think redevelopment is something that there'll be an opportunity to look at the interest in those types of dwellings as we look at what we want to envision the future of that area to be.
Just to add specifically to your question through the chair to Councillor Gale, they are added as dwelling units. So they are counted as dwelling units through a multifamily lens, but they are dwelling units. So they are included in the actual calculations for the total dwelling units for 2025.
Okay. That's everything for me. Thank you for the information.
Councillor McDonald.
Similarly specific, in a report full of increases, I noticed secondary suite applications have decreased. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I'll pass it over to Rob after to speak to the specific potential decreases, but this is something that I've been informally looking into comparatively to other municipalities. Sorry, through the chair to Councillor McDonald. And some of it because of the inquiries that we've had from some of your Councillor peers, Councillor Fedeko as well, with other municipalities and the incentives. Comparatively, we still have a high rate of secondary suites for municipality. Even the 84, I believe it was this year, referenced in the report, is still higher than some of our other peer municipalities that have incentives like Okotoks, and getting close to the numbers that we're seeing. Not every municipality tracks them and reports on them in the same way, so it can get a little bit complicated in comparisons, but some of the early metrics looking at Airdrie, we even get similar numbers to a municipality twice our size. But maybe the decline, I can kind of pass over to Rob as well.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor McDonald. I really, and I don't truly know. I would really say that the market kind of dictates that. At the Cochrane Planning Commission, we did review secondary suites in existing dwellings compared to new builds, and the new builds hold way more. So I think I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think it was about 60-ish were within the new builds, and then 20 or some odd would be in the existing. So more new buyers are actually including those, or builders are including those secondary suite requirements or requests within their building permits as well, and through development permits as well. It really ebbs and flows, I think. Prior to 2024, where we had 95, I think we had a total of 50 or 40. And so I think it really just depends on what the market dictates and the demand for those, and affordability, I would imagine, as well.
Sure. Yeah, I was just curious, like you say, because of affordability, I think those secondary suites kind of fit into affordable housing without being a formal approach to affordable housing. And then they also help the mortgage holder live a more affordable life. So something I'm really interested in seeing more of. And then just like that gentle density approach that they allow. So thank you for that extra context. And then my second question was just looking for an update on rolling trails, if you have anything.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor McDonald, we were working with the developer there to work through their neighborhood plan submission. Still ongoing. Hopefully getting to council within this year, but we'll see. But we're just working through some servicing things, considerations, and then just the land uses in general. So we're working towards it for sure. It's an active application.
I imagine that's a tricky one, probably for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I think any kind of neighborhood plan is a tricky one.
Sure.
They all have their different kind of complexities, but yeah.
Sure. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Councillor Singh.
I was reading through the Community Growth Annual Report. What is SNS? I'm just curious, like SNS applications.
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor Singh, SNS stands for statutory, non-statutory. Yeah. Does that help?
Obviously.
Sorry. So statutory plans are plans that are included in the Municipal Government Act. So our area structure plans, land use, development permits, those are all statutory. And then there's non-statutory, which is neighborhood plans. Those are not actually statutory plans, but are, so they're included in all of them.
Yeah, I was looking for the terminology, but thank you, yeah. And the follow-up is, could you please elaborate the distinction between 5.4 to 6 years of subdivided but not yet constructed land and 22.7 to 25.1 years of neighborhood plan approved land? Especially, it would be helpful to understand how each category translates into actual development readiness and timing.
Absolutely. So through the chair to Councillor Singh, speaking to statutory, non-statutory. So the baseline, or the 6 years, up to 6 years, is land use or land supply that has been subdivided. So that has approvals. So within Cochrane, the municipality of Cochrane, you do not require a development permit for single-family homes or semi-detached homes or anything like that. So low-density residential. And so they go right to building permit. So the approvals that you would require in order to build that would be a subdivision. So as soon as subdivision is endorsed, it goes right to a building permit. So for the larger 25 years, that is all the approvals for neighborhood plans, area structure plans that indicate what the anticipated densities are or dwelling unit counts. Yeah. So that is the 16,000, 17,000. Yeah. And so those don't have subdivision yet. Yeah. So they're in the next phases once approvals or once they start building out, servicing kind of connects. So it's all based on that servicing connection, and the developer starts to build those out more. So it's the approved area that has already been approved through council, so through the statutory, non-statutory planning processes. Yeah. And then the 6 years is what has been approved through the planning services side of subdivision and development permits.
Okay, no worries. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. I want to dive into these numbers a little bit more. As Councillor McFadden pointed out, it is a highlight that Cochrane is such a nice place that so many people want to live here. I do have concerns about the rate that we're growing. To put that 6.4% into context, a quick Google AI chat tells me that Canada's average growth rate as a nation over the past 20 years has been about 1%. And the record growth years in Canada was 3.2%. So we are way above the national average, and then actually double the national record of growth in Cochrane. And it's not that we don't want more lovely people to move to Cochrane. My concerns are actually very practical ones about the financial implications and real implications on our facility and services and infrastructure. And hopefully we can do some work to address that, but we're not going to solve that tonight. I just wanted to preface my position before asking some of these questions. So the 6.4%, is that an actual head count through a census, or is that an estimation through the units that were built?
To the chair, through the units that were built. So
Okay.
Using a 2.6 per dwelling unit, I forget what the number is actually called, but that's through so 913 times the 2.6 per dwelling unit gives you that span of the estimated population growth.
And then will we do an official municipal census at some point during this term to formalize the actual population count?
To the chair, to Mayor Nagel, I believe we have a national census coming up, which should confirm our population count.
That should work. That should do it. Perfect. And then the amount of housing or approval supply, I'll call it, not housing supply. Just to clarify, is it 12 to 14 years of land use approval and 4 to 6 years of subdivision approval? Am I understanding those numbers correctly?
So this is a good point, and I thank you for bringing it up to the chair. So last year we talked about our land use approval. Now, when we think about our neighborhood plans, our area structure plans, a lot of those carry land use approval with that concurrently, right? And so when going through this and going through last year's numbers, I was concerned about the actual number of land use approvals that we have, that it's going to be very similar to the neighborhood plan approvals that we have. And so I wanted to reflect just more of the subdivision, what we're actually seeing. And so when you say 12.6, are you referencing the information that is then in the council report?
Yeah, so that's why I was seeking clarification on
Correct.
what exactly.
Yeah.
What is our land use supply and our subdivision supply, sorry.
So our subdivision supply is six years. That's what we have to date of land use approval, of subdivision land use approval. Now, the land use approval itself ties with the neighborhood plan, so that is that overall 25 years.
25.
Yes. Because that carries the land use approval that we needed to actually build up to those times. Sorry?
So if council did not grant any more land use approvals at our current growth rate of 6.4%, there's 25 more years to fill out the current land use granting, or the land use that has been approved?
Correct. Oh, sorry.
I feel the need to understand this math, because that seems like a very long time.
Sorry, to the chair, to Mayor Nagel, it's actually, the estimates were based on an average over the past 10 years. So it's not reflective of a 6.4% growth rate. It's reflective of a historical average development within that specific category. So it's lower than 6.4%, as we saw the estimated population increase last year around 5.6% and about 4% the year prior. So it's actually showing, it's actually reflecting some of the years that were slower as well. We also anticipate, you'll notice the comparison to the growth study of 3.9% projected growth. As we start increasing, the population increases, we anticipate you're not going to see 6.4% population increases. As you have a larger population base, you're going to start seeing that percentage amount come down over time.
So it's based on a 6-year moving average, you said? 10-year moving average of our growth rate during that period. Do you know what that figure is we're using for the assumption?
I don't know it off the top of my head. Perhaps Mr. Eau Claire may.
Amount of dwellings, you mean?
Well, we used a average growth rate to
Correct.
calculate a 25-year land use supply and 4 to 6 year subdivision of supply. What is the actual nominal value that we're using for that calculation?
So I believe I'd have to check the raw data through the chair, but I believe it's 500 and something units per year.
Oh, so it's a fixed unit number, not a percentage.
Correct. So it's based on the mean and median of the 10-year historical average, 10-year historical data.
Oh yeah, can you bring that slide up again? Whichever one is most relevant to what you're talking about. So at a rate of 550 units per year.
Correct.
Then it would take 25 years to build out everything. So that's about 11,000 units remaining? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Apologies for not.
No, it's all good. Okay, I'm still noodling, hoping to have this conversation go longer so I can ask more questions once I'm done noodling. Council, do you have anything else to ask? Well, seeing no other questions, I will have to follow up with any additional questions that I have after the meeting. Did we get a motion on the floor to accept this as information? Kate? All right. I shall call the question. All in favor of accepting it as information? Okay. Carried. Thank you. And that brings us to, where is my agenda? There it is. That is the end of our formal business. That moves us into notices of motion. We have 3 of them. 1 of them is for discussion and decision tonight, and 2 are not. I forgot that part last week, so I thought I better clarify for my own reminder. So first up, Councillor Singh, do you want to share with us your motion?
Thank you, I think we discussed same thing, read the.
Please make a motion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that Council direct administration to review the question and concern raised during the seniors engagement session and report back to Council with an action plan outlining potential responses, including collaboration with relevant provincial, federal, and community partners where applicable prior to July 13, 2026.
Okay. Any conversation? Councillor McDonald?
I have concerns with the language in the notice of motion. Sorry, I started taking notes. Specifically, I was there, it was a terrific session. But specifically the language directing administration to report back to council with an action plan, outlining potential responses and collaboration with relevant levels of government and community partners. It's just a long list of items, and I wonder if there isn't room to clarify that instruction to admin so that we're not massively gumming up entire departments dedicated to all 13 items.
Councillor Singh, do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McDonald. Yes, I would love to accept that rather than getting the action plan, and I think there's lots of changes in the provincial and federal government and stuff, maybe if we can still bring a request for information as purposes that so that we can be able to communicate back to the people, that we have heard this thing and this is what we are kind of doing, could be a one-liner or could be two-liner or something, but at least report back to the public so that it's not get dust away, it not get pushed to the back of there, so.
Could I suggest, perhaps it's amenable to both of you, changing the word action plan to communication plan?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest update, but I think that's acceptable as well.
That's a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
So the motion is as reads, but the word action has been changed to, with a communication plan instead of action plan. Okay. Councillor Federico?
Yes, I think I brought this up last week when we weren't supposed to be discussing this. Perhaps whether or not this information could be relayed at the state of Cochrane or whatever it's going to become. Just because I think that some of these issues, while the information was gathered and the questions were asked at a seniors session, I think a lot of these are concerns that the community overall might have. And so just wondering about the broader communication plan as it goes forward, that it is not just kind of relayed back to people who attended, but more to the community overall, because I think there's some valuable things here that probably a lot of people want to know.
Did you have a response to that, Councillor Singh? Okay, all right, Councillor Gale.
Yeah, I had a similar concern just with the way it was phrased at the beginning there. I'm a little bit concerned with some of the, I guess not the questions, they're very valid questions, but I feel like some of these aren't necessarily questions that are answered by our admin. I think some of these are definitely, for example, provincial advocacy points, but at the same time, I think we might just be told, yeah, it's an advocacy point, and that's kind of, I just don't, I kind of worry that this might clog up admin with things that they don't really have any control or say over at this point in time, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to make sense. I'm not opposing this. I'm just a little bit worried about the specifics and what actually falls under the scope of our own administration, if that makes sense.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, thanks. So Councillor Singh and I had actually talked about this the other day, and kind of guidance, on this question and the timeline for response. And kind of as I was sharing is, an action plan for all of these things would take time because it's such a huge ask. And I think Councillor McDonald keyed on to the piece that made it so burdensome was an action plan. And I think even a communication plan might be too much again. I think maybe what you were asking, and I wasn't at this one, but we're just looking for, public responses that we can share at a high level with these, right? Just an update. Just a quick snapshot response as opposed to a full communication plan or a full action plan. Because I think some of these, ambulance services, concerns regarding no ambulance availability, this is a concern that obviously council shares, and this is why we have included this in our advocacy. So instead of a huge communication plan around that, it's probably just a 1 or 2 sentence snapshot that we all, I would love to have all this information as well to share, because it's not just limited to seniors. So maybe the language is more, because you were just looking for the snapshot of information, not, I think that's the place where we're struggling
So I think the main concern, and I was talking to a few residents as well, that there is another, okay, you did this survey, you did this survey, you did this engagement, but what's after this? What are we bringing back after that? Yes, creating an information, getting from them, and what are we returning back? I just wanted to have a high-level response, like if that makes sense, like outlining what we have heard, what falls within our control, and where we may be able to work with other, partnership with something in there. It doesn't have to be exhaustive or final, and I'm sure it'll be, but it need to be communicated. It doesn't need to be sit and residents, they need a timeline, otherwise it get pushed back to the sidelines, and then you say, okay, we did one engagement, what's gonna do with the information we collected from there? And also it's, we talked about today engagement, civic leadership or whatever. This is an opportunity to demonstrate that engagement leads to something tangible. Even it's that something is evolving process, it has to be live and breathable. I'm sure whatever things there, I'm on few boards in the Big Hill Lodge, recreation parks, I'm thinking we work in progress, but at least people will get that just that council as a team with administration is working together to get some information to them. What we heard, this is what, and they also know that it's not gonna happen in one day. They all know that, but at least they also want to see some kind of action, some kind of action taken from them and a response given in general, like a high level response, yeah.
So what would you think about just tweaking the language a little bit? Because I think I understand the heart of what you're trying to get to is that high-level response of some very complex questions here. What if we amended it, report back to council with a high-level response to be shared to the community via communications? And then you could, we could bump up prior to July 13th. Because if it's just a high-level response to your 13 questions, I'm sure that could be done easily well, I shouldn't say easily, it's not me doing the work, but within a month. But any thoughts from that side of the bench about how, I think we're just trying to get a snapshot information piece on these questions.
I think our CEO wanted to jump in.
If I can, Councillor Singh, I know you and I have had some conversations about this in the past, and I'm wondering if one of the things you were looking forward to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, of having a follow-up event so you could report back to the 84 people who participated in the event. So I think that's something that you've shared with me that's very important. And I believe that you were looking towards July with the intent of sometime perhaps in the summer of having a follow-up. And then I think that also links into what Councillor Federico is talking about is it's not just for those 84 people, but for a larger group. Am I correct in sharing that?
Thank you. This is a public information, and I'm sure whatever we talked here is public. Mm-hmm. So regardless, you talk here, you talk with 84 people, it'll go public in there. Mm-hmm. And it's not restricted to I would say those people who were present there and also the other nonprofit. It's for the general public as well. Let's say in few years, I'm gonna be getting into that, the age group as well. So if I don't see an end line or a silver line out there, how I'm gonna plan for it? What are we doing for that? Our aging population is growing, put in this perspective, more than 25%. What do we have? It's an ongoing process. I'm not saying I agree with all my council colleagues here. Whatever the language is, doesn't matter. As long as the communication, I think 4 of our members were present there that day, and they all heard them loud and clear, and that was one of the main concern was that, okay, what are you gonna do with that? So if we get an opportunity to get that information, and it could be at state of Cochrane or whatever the platform could be, doesn't matter. As long as it's communicating, and we can be by state of Cochrane or something in there, it could be come out in a little bit more fruitful way, that some provincial government may make announcement or federal government make announcement. So at least we'll align those things to that thing in there. At least give public something that what we ran for, a transparent, open communication. This is what we heard. This is we working. It might take time. Nobody is saying that it's gonna done in tomorrow. let's at least give them a high-level communication. Yes, council is working towards that thing. Simple as that. Whatever language we're gonna use, I'll lean on to our administration and my fellow council colleagues onto that. So yeah, happy to listen to them.
Councillor McFadden, your light was still on. Did you have anything else to add?
No, sorry, I was just trying to think through some different language to maybe tighten it up. What about that administration be directed to provide a high-level commentary and context on these items and to provide a report to council?
And I said it's an evolving, a document, and as more information will come, it will evolve. Like, let's say, whatever the ambulance services, something comes up tomorrow, it'll get updated, and by July 13th or so, we might have a little bit more information. So yeah, please, I'll appreciate your wording there. Yeah.
Let me work on something on the side and.
Sure, and I'll just provide some comments if I could. While Tara wordsmiths, Councillor McFadden wordsmiths. First off, I want to commend your initiative to organize the event, bring all these people together, hear their concerns, and bring this into the council chambers. I think there's an opportunity to improve how we do this in the future. It's very different than what we've done, and that's why I'm having a hard. And I've been here for over a decade at the ranch house, and that's why I'm having a hard time articulating what works here, what doesn't, because it's just very different. One of the challenges was the action plan, as was identified by some of our colleagues here this evening, because the action plan, that's a lot of work. And then it's not just on one thing. There's 13 huge things here, and each of these are a very large project. And you can imagine that if each of the 7 of us brought 13 things, that is 91, if my math is correct. 91 huge projects by July. And so we just need to be careful that we're strategic in the way we approach our workload, which is why we're doing the broad strategic planning process. Again, I think it's great you're moving these things. There's a lot of good ideas baked in here. We just need to be kind of thoughtful as to how we handle it. And by asking for a report on all of these things, even though it is just for information, which I want to help you get the information, support a motion to get you the information, when we go back to another event, we have to be careful we're not creating expectations that all this stuff is going to happen right away. So for example, you talk about single floor seniors housing. One of the ideas I've had in the back of my mind, affordable, accessible housing with no stairs. I've been hearing the words stacked bungalows a lot lately, which is like not an apartment. It's like a 4-story tall bungalow of that's the type of policy option we could work towards. But if that's something we're going to do, it kind of needs to happen through a broader policy process that all of council's involved in. And then that's an example we could actually have a policy item on. But then some of these, ambulance services, the Big Hill Lodge rebuild, and I was just at the Big Hill Lodge today speaking. It's gonna be a challenge to communicate to the public that the reality is we don't control Big Hill Lodge. We don't control the ambulance services. And so we just have to be really careful how we're communicating with the public. And I would caution you there. And then the other piece is, as a matter of process, I think we need to be mindful as to how we organize events independently and then create staff action items out of it. So it's like if this was a council mandated event, I think it would be more reasonable to come with a list of action items. So for example, we just decided we're going to use these focus groups. Those were endorsed by a motion of council, and the focus groups are presumably going to have some action items. But that's a process that was initiated by us as a whole. And so so to kind of sum up where I'm going with this, it's firstly commendable initiative. I really truly mean that. I think it's great you pulled people together to speak, and it's great you pulled people together to listen to them. But my caution here is we need to be careful in the future we don't create this a huge amount of work like this for our admin that is not in line with our strategic planning. And maybe the solution there is just bringing these forwards 1 or 2 at a time instead of 13 at a time. And then the other piece is just making sure we're really careful in the expectations we're setting in the community, because once we come back with this report, they're gonna be like, okay, you gave me the report on the ambulance services, so when's the next report of it being done? That's where this is going. So those are my comments. I'm seeing some lights here. Councillor McDonald.
I think it's important to point out for anyone who wasn't there, or maybe people watching who don't know what we're talking about, The panel on stage had Rocky View Foundation, our CAO was there, CSHO, which is the housing organization, Seniors on the Bow, Bethany Care. I'm not sure if I'm missing anyone from that list. But my point is, they were doing their best to respond to the questions in live time. So as I think about it, if it was just you, Councillor Singh, collecting the concerns of the seniors and then bringing it back for answers, that would suggest that no answers had been provided that night. But there was a whole panel. So do you think, trying to turn this into a question now, do you think that some of the 13 points in the notice of motion weren't adequately answered that night?
I think the reason was, that was the question, sorry.
Councillor Singh, please.
Councillor McDonald. I believe the reasoning rationale behind was that was the collective, like, all the residents, not like, from initially from me. Those were the residents of Cochrane, seniors resident who lived here long or whoever. They just wanted their, I would put in this perspective, questions, what they asked for it, a general, overall, high-level thing that the municipality is working towards, either advocacy part or towards that part. Like, let's say, for example, ambulance or hospital and stuff, whatever we talked about, and it might align with citizen or something. That notice of motion I wanted to bring forward before was Councillor McFadden, let's align with that. So I'm not here to like make our administration work more hassle because we have our strat sessions coming, as Mayor mentioned, but just like, getting a high level, and the timeline is July asked for, Council needs, we can bump it to give answer as our strat sessions finishes, we get more information, happy to do that, but I also don't want to let it die as well. I don't want that, like, it's very important that communication, what we heard from them, one way or the other, being, communicated back to the seniors, so.
Back to Councillor Federico.
I'm not going to try to steal this. Councillor McFadden did send out something, but basically to review the questions and concerns raised through the senior engagement session and provide a high-level public response by July 31st. I actually look at this, I don't even think this needs to be a notice of motion though. I think that this could be provided as an ELT weekly update. Perhaps if that one pager could come forward where the questions that you've asked, Councillor Singh, are important. But I don't think it needs to be done through a notice of motion because there's no policy or something that even if we got the report back, what are we doing with it? Like, it's not leading to any other action. So maybe if we could just basically state that by July 31st, where it's provided, maybe it's in the weekly update, maybe it's just a separate document altogether, but just a high level look at all the questions that you brought forward, and then that way you can take them back out to the public, but rather than making it seem kind of an arduous work project that I don't think it needs to be. It's just maybe my thoughts.
Sorry, Councillor Federico, can you please repeat the text that you read for a motion?
Oh,
did you just send it?
yeah.
Okay, I don't have my email inbox open.
Councillor McFadden said direct administration to review the questions and concerns raised through the senior engagement session and provide a high-level public response by July 31st. I'm not sure if I really like the direct administration. I don't know. It just seems very formal, but maybe it's just that we can, because like I said, I don't actually know if this needs to even be a notice of motion.
Yeah, so perhaps administration, how do you, I'm not gonna put you on the spot actually. So I would support the current notice of motion, but with maybe just an understanding that next time we try and go through less formal channels for requests for information. And what I don't want to happen this evening is you'd feel like you've had your wings clipped. I've been in your position before where I've got a huge thing I want to build momentum behind, deliver on for the community, and then you hit like this like process wall, and it's like, how do I move forwards? So I think a step forward, because not wanting that as the outcome for you, would be maybe just move forward with this request for information. We have a ladies and gentlemen's agreement to not bring requests for information forwards in the future as notices of motion. Instead, we would just try and get information through emails, meetings as best as possible in the future. And then after you get your information, we work together to try and identify one or two, maybe three things that fall directly within the municipal jurisdiction that we can actually craft tangible notices of motion from to tackle. So we start with a motion to get the information. We identify clearly what's within the municipal government's realm and what we can deliver upon, and bring some tangibles forward after that. How does that sound as a path forward? And how do you have a response to the suggested language for that motion?
I think I'll echo my team, like, in supporting this. And also moving forward, like, that was the first event I organized, and I appreciate the councillors present there, like, Councillor Gale, Councillor Wilson, Councillor McDonald, and our CEO there, and other nonprofit organization, all the seniors. It's a learning curve for me as well. So I'll make sure also that we have lots of, in our strat session as well, lots of other things to work around. So I appreciate our administration time as well. So moving forward, like, I'll make sure, like, I'll discuss and make it a proper way to bring it forward. No problem.
Okay. So then, motion-wise, would you rescind your initial motion and then just move what Councillor Federico read?
Yeah, I'll echo that.
Does administration have that text? Do we need it read out again, or you have it? Okay. But yeah, again, I really don't want this to feel like your wings are being clipped. It's just, directing the energy, focusing it, and figuring out how we can deliver best for the residents, and you can get a real win on the things that you promise these people. Okay, great. I'll call the motion. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And that brings us into our next round of notices of motion, but these ones are not to be discussed and debated tonight, only to be introduced. The first one is from Councillor Wilson.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm just introducing a notice of motion that we will debate in an upcoming meeting. I presume the next one, or it might be two. I've lost track of the process of it. But anyway, just to introduce it, we just had a growth study report that we learned that Cochrane is growing very fast. I think we already know that. One of my top issues running for re-election and that I focus my energy on is how we're going to get our financial house in order and how we're going to pay for all this growth. Council's recently learned that in the short to midterm time frame, we're staring down something in the magnitude of $350 million in non-discretionary capital improvements that we need created from growth, and something in the magnitude of $350 million additional discretionary capital projects that Council's hoping to see built to also facilitate this growth. So it's a lot of money is what it comes down to. And so I've been working with administration to kind of bring through a notice of motion here that captures how are we going to pay for this. And there's essentially 7 items as I was working through this with CAO Heineman that I wanted to zero in on that generated this notice of motion. And those 7 items are, just to help you all consider for when we're actually debating this upcoming, are number 1, opportunities to accelerate the identification, planning, and inclusion of growth-related core infrastructure projects within the offsite levy bylaw. Number 2, considerations related to community amenities such as fire halls, libraries, indoor recreation facilities, including how and when these projects are planned, funded, and delivered in the context of growth, as well as the timing required studies to support their potential inclusion in the offsite levy bylaw. 3, the requirements, constraints, and risks associated with advancing projects more quickly, including legislative and appeal considerations. 4, the financial implications, including potential impacts on levy collection, taxation, and debt. 5, any phased or interim approaches that could support earlier cost recovery while maintaining appropriate technical and financial rigor. 6, an assessment of proposed or potential amendments to the MGA by the province of Alberta related to offsite levies, including implications and opportunities for the town of Cochrane. And finally, recommended actions or strategies to optimize the timing and effectiveness of offsite levy collection to support community growth. And so, very simply, the notice of motion recommended action reads: the council direct administration to report back to council by June 15th, 2026 with an analysis and recommendations respecting the town's OSL framework, including opportunities to accelerate the identification, planning, and inclusion of eligible growth-related infrastructure projects within the offsite levy bylaw.
Okay, great. So we'll revisit that for group conversation and decision. No questions, unless it's for clarification. Yes. Councillor Gill.
Councillor Wilson, can you please send an email with that list that you just read out, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to do so. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We'll make sure you get it. Okay. We'll sort that out after the meeting. Next up, I also have a notice of motion that I'm giving notice of, not reading. Very timely tonight, given our development summary report. It is the topic that was very hotly discussed during the municipal election. It was one of, if not the defining issue in the election, I felt, and also something we've brushed up on a lot in our strategic planning conversations as a needed priority, but it is the introduction of a conversation about considering options for managing Cochrane's growth better. I'll read the executive summary, read the recommended action, and then save the rest of my commentary for thereafter, the next meeting. Executive summary: the town of Cochrane has experienced sustained and significant population growth, creating both opportunities and pressures related to infrastructure, financial capacity, service delivery, housing, and environmental stewardship. The current growth assumptions are not formally established through a defined strategic policy framework, resulting in variability and challenges in long-term planning for the municipality and broader community. Establishing a clearer, more deliberate approach to growth management could support improved decision-making, alignment of infrastructure and financial planning, and greater certainty for residents, businesses, and development partners. There is an interest in exploring a more balanced growth trajectory, targeting 3% residential growth to better align population growth with the town's financial capacity, infrastructure readiness, and service delivery capabilities. It's worth noting that many other municipalities are advancing balanced growth approaches that align growth with financial sustainability, infrastructure readiness, and community outcomes. The recommended action, the actual motion I'll be bringing forward, again, is a mouthful, but it is really just one thing with a lot of ideas baked in. That council directs administration to report back with options to establish a high-level strategic objective within the town's strategic plan that affirms, oh, hold on, before I make this motion, I need to relinquish the chair, don't I? Am I able to actually introduce this procedurally? I can. Okay. Sorry. First time I've done this term. Sorry, I'm going to restart. Recommended action that council directs administration to report back with options to establish a high-level strategic objective within the town's strategic plan that affirms a commitment to balanced growth, including consideration of a target growth rate, a review of growth management frameworks used by comparable municipalities in alignment with financial capacity, infrastructure, housing, economic development, and environmental outcomes. An evaluation of a balanced growth target, including an analysis of a 3% annual growth scenario, high-level implementation tools, and policy mechanisms to support achieving that growth target, and a proposed roadmap outlining analysis, engagement, and timing for the development and implementation of a balanced growth strategy. So that is the motion. And one final comment I'll make is that I do not intend to bring many things this large forward to council. This is really the only one. This is the one. And then after that, I will not ask for a huge policy. But yeah, we'll discuss that at an upcoming council meeting. So that is the end of that motion, which brings us into mayor's reports. Last week, there was a lot of meetings. The real big, of course, announcement was the fire hall that happened at the last council meeting. But then recently, we had the volunteer fair this week. I thought that was a roaring success. I had a lot of groups and people that I spoke with that were very appreciative of the opportunity for that to happen here. They said it is just a lovely sign of the times here at the Ranch House, and people like seeing the community pulling together like that. So kudos to everybody who organized it and to all of our groups who participated. Today I also spoke at the Big Hill Lodge. Of course, no shortage of questions about when they're going to get an investment in their facility or a new facility, and they just would not take no for an answer. I kept on saying, I don't know, it's in the province's hands, but I had to say that about 5 or 6 times. They're very eager, and hope to see some action on that soon. And I also had a bunch of lovely conversations with councillors. I made a point of having a lot of coffees and lunches last week, and I hope we can all do that again moving forwards, because it's just so great to just have conversations and get to know what's on everybody's mind. But other than that, I won't provide much else of an update. Can I get a motion to accept my mayor's report? Councillor McDonald? All in favor? Okay. Carried. And then let's move on to council reports. Who has one? Councillor Fideko first.
I just have a couple of things that I wanted to mention. The Friends of the Library are having a book sale, April 18th and 19th here at the Ranch House. And they would love your support because that money that they raise goes to fund some much needed items that the library is looking for, as well as both Councillor McDonald and I sit on the Cochrane Society for Housing Options Board, and they're having their AGM on April 29th. And lastly, something that I spoke about during the election that is super important to me, but also because I've received some recent communication, I will be bringing forward a whistleblower notice of motion come by mid-May. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. So just to give everybody the heads up.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Singh, did I see your light?
Thank you. I want to extend a sincere thank you to our dedicated volunteers supporting the Volunteers for Our Income Tax program. Their effort makes a meaningful difference in our community. And also the Seniors Property Tax Rebate program launched on April 1st, 2026. For more information, you can contact FCSS office. And I'll be attending 2026 Premier Summit on Fairness for Newcomers in Edmonton on the morning of April 15th. So I'll be leaving tomorrow. And as our mayor said, Councillor Gale, myself, we had the opportunity to attend the Cochrane Fair, and kudos to all the staff and volunteers and organizers for such a great event. It was well attended. Same day, I had the opportunity to attend the Cochrane Immigrant Services Committee, the Calgary Arab Festival, and they had a tremendous turnout and great food and dance. I didn't dance, so that's good. And also I had the opportunity the same day to attend the Cochrane Historical and Archival Preservation Society at their spring gala dinner held at the Cochrane Legion. And I'd get an opportunity to meet all the members there and there. I have registered for 2 additional courses for my elected official education program. The first one is the council role in regional collaboration, begins on April 16th. And the second course is council role in public engagement, that's starting on May 6th. And lastly, I want to extend my sincere thank you to After School Stationery and Gifts for their wonderful service to the community over the past 3 years. Their final day of operation was April 10th, 2026. I wish the owners continued success and all the very best in their future endeavors. They closed their store there. So, thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Can I get a motion to accept council reports? Councillor Gill? All in favor? Carried. And we have one closed session. Can I get a motion from council to go into closed session? Councillor Singh?
Make a motion.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. And why don't we take a quick 2 to 5 minute break while the feed switches over?